Welcome to Your Music Saved Us, where two friends blast ourselves into the past to relive and recontextualize the alternative Christian music we grew up listening to in the 1990s. But we're not doing that because we're doing something different today as a emergency broad. I don't know. Something happened. Jay, what happened?
What happened was one of the musicians that we covered in a previous podcast listened to the episode and wanted to talk about it.
Right.
That's what happened.
So we ended up having a conversation with Dan Fritz and his wife, Tara. Dan is the lead singer for Johnny Q. Public.
Yeah, and we had a really fun time talking. It went much longer than I thought it would. And it was a good time. And yeah, I hope you all enjoy listening to it and learning some stuff about Johnny Q. Public. I definitely learned some stuff I wish I had known prior to reviewing the album.
Of course, yes. I hope you guys like long episodes because this is going to be like 3 hours long. And if you don't want to listen to the whole thing, that's fine, probably.
Yep.
But we had fun conversation. There's a little bit of drinking, so I don't know. Maybe the end of it's not good. Who knows, right?
Right.
But even after the 3 hour conversation, I could still have a long conversation, I think, talking about like digging more on like the industry type stuff, you know? But yeah, it was a long, fun conversation about Johnny Q. Public, about Dan and Tara. They have their own podcast. Talked about that a little bit, and just other random things that came up. And we talked about our podcast a little bit too, because they had some questions about what our goals were and that kind of thing with the podcast. So all that is discussed here. So enjoy.
He says, "There it is.
There we are.
There you are.
Are
There we go.
now?
Nice.
Hi.
Howdy.
I was
Oh,
like, I
yeah.
thought you were asking me what the camera was. I'm like, well, it's our iPhone. What we use is an iPhone 11.
Clifton and Jay, how's it going, guys?
Pretty good. How about you?
We're doing
Good. How are you?
Good.
Fantastic.
Where are you guys at?
I'm in Texas, Austin, Texas.
The home
And
of Joe Rogan.
I'm in Charleston, West
Ugh.
Virginia.
Charleston, West
Wow.
Virginia.
Totally
Yeah.
separate from each other.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Austin, Texas. I want to go to Austin, Dan. I want to go. I want to
Yeah,
go.
we haven't
like
been.
soon. I've been
Yeah.
there, but not with you. I want to go.
I'll go now that Joe Rogan's there.
Totally. Yep.
And
Yeah.
Clifton.
And
It's
Clifton.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a very different place every day. It just keeps
Yeah.
growing and changing.
Does it?
Yes.
The Midwest is blowing up right now, man.
Yeah.
We're in Springfield, Missouri still.
They know that.
They know that. I know.
They research like motherfuckers.
We just we do a Monday morning show on our actual podcast this
Yeah.
last Monday. I was making a joke like, my God, they were pulling crap out that like I didn't even remember myself.
That blog.
And I was like, shit, they're going to find my porn searches. Like, please stop researching.
No, you guys actually had a lot though. Some of these bands, I mean, we
Yeah.
really struggle. You know, because also like the internet wasn't really a thing then,
Yeah.
you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we appreciated finding the blog and other things that made it
It
much
was
easier.
so good. And
Yeah,
by
we-
the cartoon, I have to say, by the cartoon on your podcast, I had you guys switched with your
Ah.
voices.
I did too. For
I
some
had
reason,
I had you
thought,
switched.
I thought Jay's voice was Clifton.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yep,
Interesting.
totally. I love that when you hear a radio person or somebody on a podcast and then you see their actual face, you're like,
Yeah.
no. Or you go,
Except
totally.
every once in a while, you're like, yep.
Yep,
I know.
exactly. Yep,
Totally.
absolutely.
Well, I
Yeah.
don't know if I had anything in particular in mind except just kind of hanging out.
Just hanging and talking.
Yeah.
Talking and stuff. I mean, we can still go through and talk about that record and our band and stuff too. But I was almost interested also in, because it's just your podcast in general is one of actually several things. Like there's been a lot of things come out
Like all of a sudden.
in regards of the 90s Christian music
Right.
scene. It's fucking weird, man.
is,
It's
it
like
is.
And the culture of it, everything.
Yeah.
Like camps. Man, I listened to a podcast the other day about church camp.
Really?
Holy moly, yeah. And the dudes were like our age. I think you guys are about 10 years younger than me, maybe. I'm 50.
Okay, yeah, I'm 40. Yeah. And Jay's 41.
So
Yep.
I'm 51.
she's 51. So
There
anyway,
I'm proud of that shit.
they were
Yeah.
talking about church camp, and I mean, I I just could resonate with everything they were talking about, but their whole take on it was really, really negative.
Yeah.
And I agreed, you know, like in the moment, I thought church camp was the greatest thing in the world. And then the way they described it, how you basically, you know, totally wear these kids out. You know, it's like there's Bible studies at 11 at night, and then there's morning prayer at 5 a.m. And then and you go all day long with all these activities and all these church services. Well, by the time it's over, of course you're going to go forward at the fucking invitation because you're exhausted.
Yeah.
You're just like, you're crying. Everybody is bawling, crying.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because they're exhausted.
Yeah.
I want to go home.
It's real culty.
What it is, I've seen it compared like I've seen it compared to like boot camp and things like that before, you know, where it's like almost designed to like subconsciously or not, it's almost designed to like break you down emotionally, you know.
Right.
What podcast
then-
was that?
Oh, I don't have it off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I'll maybe try to
We'll-
find
we'll-
it. A
we'll
friend
get
of
it.
mine sent it to me because she knows my background.
She's also
and she's like, hey,
a recovering 90s Christian girl.
thought you would appreciate this. And I listen. It's like 2 hours long or some shit.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable.
I'm just making a note.
So I think the culture is interesting, and listening to you guys do your reviews and stuff is just kind of, it's humorous to me just because of how much I get it. Like I get what you're saying, you know, like,
Yeah.
it's hard to explain.
Yeah, and it's weird for us because I mean, and I'm sure you're there too. Is that, you know, it's like I grew up in this, and so like there's a huge soft part of my heart for this, you know. But at the same time, as you look back on it, like there's some bad parts of that, you know.
Oh, right.
Yes.
So
So I think some of that stuff would be interesting to get into.
yeah,
I think we're just, or for me at least, I feel like I'm just now to the point where I can kind of process a lot of that stuff, you know. Like I think I just took a long break from it for about 10 plus years, if not more, and finally I can kind of like, I can come back to it and look at it with fresh eyes, where I could not have done this in like,
Doesn't hurt.
I
It
don't
doesn't
know,
hurt as
15
bad.
years ago. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I've been separate from it, and so, you know,
Right.
can do it.
It's amazing how many bars I've been in drinking, and everybody at the bar has got a 90s Christian music background.
Wow.
like not having been in bands, but like
Right.
everybody
Just
knows
knows it.
DC Talk. Everybody knows, you know, the Audio Adrenaline and Newsboys and all that. They all know them. It's like the
Right.
church basically pushed us into the bars. They didn't even know they were doing it.
huh?
I mean, especially in Springfield. I mean, we're a very kind of, you know, our church per capita is like through the roof down here.
Right.
And so bands like DC Talk and Petra and all that, everybody knows
Everybody
them.
knows them. I like to say too, there's so many churches that over on I-44, which is the interstate that runs right through here on the kind of the north edge of town. There, if you come into town in the city limits, there are two gigantic churches,
Big ones.
right across each other on I-44. It's like the
Yeah.
battle of the churches. And when you're coming from St. Louis, you see this as one of the first things when you get to
When you
Springfield,
get to
Missouri.
Springfield.
And it's like, oh shit, I see what's happening here. Freaking Bible Belt City right here. Oh
Yeah.
my God, it's amazing. And I grew up, just the background, I grew up with no church, like
Really?
none. My dad was
Oh, wow.
raised,
Okay.
yeah, he was raised strict Catholic and went to Catholic school, all boys. And my mother was raised Protestant, which how they got married in the first place in the 60s, I have no idea. But
Yeah.
they were both raised very, very strict, and they rebelled against it in their own way by not giving us, it wasn't atheism, but
Yeah.
it wasn't any church. It was just,
Right.
we're just not doing that.
Lack of none.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
So when it comes to 90s Christian, I get all of that from him.
Yeah.
Not from him, but he has exposed me to all of it. So I heard some of it. I was with a guy years ago whose son was totally into it. So I heard some DC Talk and probably some Johnny Q. Public in the bedroom next door.
Yeah.
You know, literally in the 90s. So that's my only Christian music background there, is just through osmosis, through people and stuff like that. I'm completely secular. I've never even sang it.
Secular.
Secular.
The S word.
Yeah.
Secular.
It is very interesting though, because like I sometimes the podcast comes up at work, and so in Austin there's like Austin, like, so Jay and I are both from North Texas. I'm from Wichita Falls, which has about 100,000 people, and Jay's from Amarillo, which has about 200,000 people. And my town was, so Wichita Falls similarly has the church I grew up in was First Baptist Church, Wichita Falls, which is giant, and it's on the main freeway that goes through town. And of course there's a church on every corner, you know.
Yeah. Right.
And so like it was kind of ubiquitous, you know. I mean, there were people who weren't into the music side, but they still knew who like the Newsboys were, right? But then I get over here in Austin, I try and I bring it up sometimes. People are like, "What are you talking about?" It's just completely foreign to.
Wow.
Yeah. It's that's wild. It's kind of the opposite here.
Yeah.
Almost every
So Dan, has that?
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, has that been like weird? So you were in Johnny Q Public, you still live in Springfield. Was that like how was that to still be in the same place and being known for being in this Christian band, but not really having those beliefs? Now, you know what I'm saying? Like that, I'm sure that couldn't have been easy.
It was not easy. In fact, one of the, that was one of my big deciding factors about us starting this podcast, because we do several different things with the podcast. We do interviews with other musicians and kind of get their story. Then it sort of evolved into a live show we do on Thursday nights, and that was because of the pandemic. I cuss like a sailor. You know, I'm a beer bottler's son. Okay, my dad worked at Anheuser-Busch in St. Louis my whole life, and so did his brother, and so did his dad. Beer drinking was like, we did it on Mother's Day. You know, we did it on Easter. I mean, every holiday was like everyone brings their own case of beer, and beer was not like it's not a big, dark, scary, horrible thing. Mm-hmm. I've had it in my life my whole entire life.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to be genuine. One thing about being in the Christian music industry is it just sort of, by default, you almost have to be like not genuine. In what I mean by that is, you know, I remember bumping into a girl. You guys would completely know who she is if I said her name, but I'm not going to. But she is a Christian singer, and she happened to be playing a place in Springfield one time, and it was a bar.
The same place Johnny Q did their reunion show in 2015.
Yeah.
Just FYI.
It was a bar called
same place.
Cartoons, and so I knew her from back in the day, because this was only a few years ago. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to go say hi to her. So I went up there and found her, and she's like, oh my gosh, what's up? And we started hanging out, and she's got a coffee mug, and it's full of wine. And so I'm like, are you doing the wine in the coffee cup thing? And she's like, I have to. I was like, oh my gosh.
Ew.
Just come on.
And you've got your big fat Bud Light.
Oh, I was just pounding them in front of her. But anyway.
So we're drinking from a coffee cup tonight.
A lot of time had passed from, like, Johnny Q was kind of done right around 99, 2000, somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. And then I got into a heavy metal cover band. We were one of the first ones to do it around here. It was called Gun Symphony. And we were just going to totally do like butt rock 80s metal stuff. So it was Poison, Motley Crue, Bon Jovi, Guns N' Roses. We literally did the wigs, the makeup, the spandex. We did it all.
There's plenty of videos on YouTube.
And we started this back in like 2006, 2005, 2006, when nobody was really doing 80s covers, at least not around here. And we had heard of a band out in LA that was doing it. And we were like, man, this would be hilarious. So we did it just for fun. Well, I was literally in costume. So a lot of people didn't make the Johnny Q connection. Yeah. And, you know, it wasn't like we were wildly famous around here, but a lot of people knew kind of who we were. And some of our fans, diehard fans, they knew that Machine Gun was made up half of Johnny Q Public and half a Flick, actually.
Right.
And so
when it started, for sure.
And it freaking blew up, dude. We played for more people than Johnny Q Public ever played for around here.
Wow.
And made more money. Way more money.
Oh my gosh. It was $10, $15 to get in, and we would pack the place. It was like So anywhere between 300 and 600 people were showing up at every show we played.
That's a big place.
And I'm going to butt in real quick because I was in a cover band at the same time, playing almost the same set list pretty much. But I was throwing in like some girl songs too, and we could struggle to get 200 people. Like 200 people was like, oh my God, it was a great crowd. But most of our shit was less than that. And we're like, what the fuck is Machine Gun doing that we're not? You know? And I'm like, I'm the girl. I'm like, whatever. I got whatever. But no, these guys, you go to their show, wall to wall, people shoved against this the stage as if they're freaking Poison, as if they're AC/DC. It was crazy in this town. And now guess what? Every band and fucking covered band in this town does 80s covers.
Yeah, now every band in town does it.
Because of you.
But anyway, so I did a fine job of tarnishing my reputation by being in that band. Like, it got around fast that I was not the same guy that was in Johnny Q Public. But still, even with that, when we started the podcast up, the thing I hesitated the most about was like, if Johnny Q fans find out that I'm doing this podcast and I talk like this and I have some of the views that I have now and I behave the way that I behave, I still had this residual fear that I was going to get flamed for it. And I was like, we had this podcast idea a year before we actually started doing it because I was the one waiting. She was kind of like, come on, let's start it. And I was like, I don't, as soon as it gets out, you know, and again, I don't think we were big enough for it to be that big of a deal, but it was just all in my head, you know, I guess. Yeah. But it was weird. Yeah. And it still happens. Like, it's rare, but sometimes I'll just go fill my car up with gas and someone will recognize me from Johnny Q or somebody will recognize me from Machine Gun Symphony. It's like, it's so weird. Yeah. We went to a pizza place the other day and our waiter came up to our table and he's like, hey, my manager wanted me to come ask you something. And I was like, okay, here we go. He's like, did you used to be like in a band or something? And I was like, yeah, Machine Gun Symphony. And he's like, no. I think it was like John Q or Q something. I was like, oh my God. Your manager recognized me from Johnny Q Public? Holy crap.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
The nice thing about the 90s, probably for most of the guys in the bands that are in that time, is that media was so rare and pictures were so rare that probably most people can go unnoticed these days. You know?
Yeah, there is that.
Yeah.
Whereas
the blonde hair thing, I've hung out with people for like a couple of hours. Like just a few weeks ago, we're hanging out and we're watching the Chiefs.
That's our local crazy.
That's
football.
Springfield is Chiefs Nation. Even though we're 3 hours away.
Yep.
But we were in Kansas City and we were watching football in this guy's garage.
We were in Kansas City. Yeah.
And we're hanging out. There's about 10 people there, hanging out. Like for a couple of hours.
Side note, we were staying with Ken Bassham, the original bass player that you guys questioned whether he existed or not.
Oh, you
there
guys!
We go.
Yeah, you guys are cracking me up about the bass player.
Oh, it's so good.
Dilemma.
So good. But we were staying with him that weekend.
Actually, we were with him.
Side note: this was his buddy across the street.
So we're hanging out for the whole game, like 3-hour game on TV. We're drinking beers, we're having a good time, and then Ken mentions to some guy like, "Hey, this is the singer of Johnny Q Public," and the guy was like, "Oh my gosh.
Total fanboy.
Are you serious? Like, that's so cool." It's like, I've been hanging out with you for the last 3 hours. You didn't recognize that? Went right over his head. Then he got his phone out and he's looking at Body B video and all that crap. It was cracking me up.
It was hilarious.
The Body B video and the picture that I'm looking at my CDs here to see if I can quickly grab the album. I can't. But the picture in the centerfold, you know, of Extraordinary. Is it Extraordinary or Extraordinary? That was the question we had.
Extraordinary.
Okay. See, we did get it right. Okay.
Thus the dull artwork. Just saying.
We'll get into that later.
Sorry.
We'll get into that later.
But that picture is like permanently etched into my mind as the quintessential alternative look
Right.
of the
Right,
90s.
right.
Yeah, of the early 90s.
That was a good one. It was a good one.
I'll be right back. You keep going.
But so yeah, I don't know. There's definitely been some of that. I haven't gotten much though. I haven't gotten any direct hits.
Yeah.
Like I haven't had anyone email me or tell me they're all like bummed out that I don't believe the way I did, or I've never had someone actually go there. It seems like anyone, this is why I was starting off the conversation with this. It seems like anyone from that era, they just,
Wonderful.
there's a,
Yep,
Wonderful.
that photo.
mine's all faded because it hangs in the sun.
That jacket is so great.
Yeah. The funny thing about that photo is the night before we took it. Let me see. I want to.
It's covered in dust. It hangs on our kitchen wall.
Yeah.
Our kitchen wall is covered in my shit and his shit. We are the most narcissistic people you'll ever know.
Oh yeah, I've got a whole museum of myself in my kitchen.
Yeah.
My hair was halfway down my back the night before that photo.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was really, really long and really straight. It was all the way down to here. That was Johnny Q's original look. And then I was just like, man, I can't do this. I can't commit to being the long hair guy.
Right, yeah.
Because in 95, it was really kind of like
Right.
there was long hair guys and there wasn't long hair guys.
That is
It
very
was-
true.
You know what I mean? And you either just got stuck as being long hair guy or you didn't. And we knew that this photo was going to be for the record, so we went camping. Me and Sean Turner and Ken Bassham and Orrin Thornton. We the whole band. I think Brian was there
Brian?
too. Yeah, because everybody was in town because of this photo shoot. Sure. And in the middle of our camping trip, we're sitting out by the fire. I just pulled a pair of scissors out of like a backpack I brought. And I was like, if anyone's going to do it, I had hair, long hair for like 6 years.
There is a music video that he did with his first wife, not his sister. That
was our other guest, though.
Yes,
It was.
You did good. That he has this hair that's just billowing like this.
Like a lion's mane.
Anyway, go ahead.
So it was a big deal for me to cut it, but I gave the scissors to the guys, and all the guys just. I didn't go to a salon or anything like this. I just let them cut it, and we were just throwing my clumps of hair in the fire, and then just however I ended up is what that photo is. So that's why my hair's kind of jacked up looking, and I just kept that cut. I never went and had it cut ever.
Right.
I just would pull it up when something was long and cut it, and then just keep going down the road.
And then the bleach happened later.
Yeah.
Okay. For the video.
Yeah.
It was funny, though, just a quick side note. We did an interview with Jimmy Fortune from the Statler Brothers because Tara actually toured with them for a while as their opening act. And so we kind of had the hookup with him and called him and see if he would do our show. And he did. And I think towards the beginning of the show, I called him the Patrick. No, what did I call him? The Patrick Mahomes. I called him the Patrick Mahomes of the Statler Brothers because he brought the band back to life. I was like, the band was dying and you brought him back to life. And he said something like that. And I was like, oh my God, Jimmy, like that. Mm-hmm. We totally got an email on that.
Yep.
I don't really appreciate using the Lord's name in vain.
Seriously.
I listened to the interview and it was good, but I really wasn't appreciative of you using the Lord's name in vain.
Yeah.
Wait, but so when you say fuck and shit and all that, there's no problem. But you said, oh my God, and they got upset.
Well, I didn't say
nice.
it.
I love that.
I didn't say it on Jimmy's interview.
On Jimmy's interview.
I knew that Jimmy from the Statler brother, I'm not going to go there. So I cleaned my act up for.
But that was the only thing, because she actually said in the email was like your choice of language.
Because I might have said damn or shit towards the end.
Maybe.
Just one time.
Right.
It slipped and I got an email on that just like that.
And it was just like, all right.
Okay, sorry. But yeah, if that same lady was deciding to start binging our podcast, she would be very, very disappointed.
No, she wouldn't get past the first 3 minutes.
Dig into the past episodes. I did listen to the recent interview with the guy from Petra.
Oh, Greg,
that was a very interesting. That guy can tell some stories.
I know, it's good. It's good. Yeah, I told him towards the end of the interview because they're playing in Branson this Saturday. Actually,
Really?
in 2 days. Yeah, and we're going to the show. And
Classic Petra
it's classic
Resurrection.
Resurrection. So it's the original members from like
Louis in the band.
the 80s. Yeah, except for Bob Hartman.
No,
He's not
Bob.
with them.
No.
I don't think they get along well with him. But anyway, towards the end of that interview, I don't know if you heard the whole thing when I said, "Hey, Greg, you think it would be appropriate if I put together a party bus and we all get shit hammered on the way to the Petra show in Branson?" I actually said shit hammered.
Yeah.
I was like, "Would it be weird if I show up at the Petra show shit hammered Saturday?" And I was like, "I can't believe I just said that." To Greg Volz. Like, he was like my hero growing up. He did good, though.
He took it in stride.
Yeah,
he took it in stride.
He wasn't judgy.
That's
No,
nice.
he's not. Because he hated being judged himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was funny.
I think that's probably I think well, Jay and I have talked about that before a little bit on some of the, especially I think maybe the Supertones episode, where growing up in the '90s with and I'm sure every generation went through it, but being highly judged by the people in the church and kind of the the difference between like, this guy's a shitty person, but we'll put up with him. But are you wearing sandals? We need to talk about this.
Yeah.
You're right.
That's just big one thing.
The stuff that was problems. I remember my youth leader when I first got my ears pierced. He called me into his office at church, and he was having this real condescending talk to me and going on and on and on. And then at one point in the conversation, he taps his own earlobes and he goes, "I just don't understand this." And I was like, "What the fuck, man? Like, okay."
Oh my God.
I just don't understand this.
Yeah. So that's one thing that I was very curious about, is whether or not you grew up in the youth group type situation.
I kind of got the classic Christian testimony.
Yeah.
So my dad working at Anheuser-Busch and my whole family working at Anheuser-Busch, to just make a long story short, made for a bit of a bumpy childhood. Okay. So there was a lot of drinking, some just stuff that was like not
awesome.
Not awesome.
Yeah.
And then our neighbor invited us to go. We had no church background. Not really at all. My mom kind of dabbled in the Catholic Church a little bit, but she was kind of born and raised in Massachusetts. That's very Catholic up there.
She was very young.
And she was very young when she got
16.
Married to my dad and stuff like that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, super young, and 17, I think. But
but moved in. Whatever.
so it was not a Christian background whatsoever. No grandparents in it, nothing like that. So it was totally brand new to us. A neighbor who we had become great friends with, he was going to church at a little Baptist church just up the road from us, a neighborhood Baptist church. They were getting ready to go on like a youth mission trip, one of these things. And part of the like requirements for going on the mission trip, was to invite people to church. So, and you kind of had to try to get X amount of people to come to church. That was part of your points that you got for being able to go on this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, so
you know what I mean.
he invited our family, and because we had gotten such good friends with him, we all went. So we gave him like 5. We were just going to help him out for this point-based system thing. So 5 of them, which was my mom and dad, my older brother, me, and my younger brother. All 5 of us went, and just to get him his thing. And then freaking, it didn't happen that day. But I mean, we went back again the next week, and it wasn't for the points. It was just because kind of liked it. Kind of went again.
Yeah.
My mom and dad got saved. My brother got saved. I ended up getting saved. My younger brother came a little bit afterwards, all within a matter of a few months. And my grandfather, which was my dad's dad, he passed away in the middle of this whole thing, and that almost kind of threw fuel on the fire. So we, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, were like super Christian family.
How old were you at this time?
I was like 12 or 13, somewhere around there. This is somewhere around 83. 82 or 83. And we weren't super Christian like we were super holy. I mean, my dad was still wild dude and
Still drank.
just for a little bit. He actually quit drinking after a while. But yeah, he still kind of had the same kind of personality, but he started reading Christian books and reading the Bible and getting into Bible study and became a deacon and the whole 9 yards. The same guy that invited us to that church for that youth mission trip thing, he played Petra for me for the first time. And it was like More Power to You. Somewhere around More Power to You or Not of This World. And I about shit my pants. I just was like, this is just amazing. I loved it. I was 12. Just the artwork. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just the best thing ever in the world. And then I got into Petra.
Were you already into other music at that point? Like secular music?
Yeah, my brother and my brother's 5 years older than me. So I kind of looked up to him, he was my big brother. We were listening to like REO Speedwagon. We were kind of in that sort of stuff.
Oak Ridge Boys.
Well, that's sort of different. We kind of listened to Oak Ridge Boys some too, but I mean, as far as like pop rock music, REO Speedwagon, Supertramp, even, Three Lock Box, sang for Van Halen.
I Can't Drive.
Sammy
55.
Hagar.
Yeah.
Sammy Hagar. We were into music kind of like that. So the Petra thing sort of fit because it wasn't like that big, heavy, distorted, heavy metal stuff. It was kind of that clean shit.
Clean and crisp and awesome.
Yeah, like Kansas.
Right.
Like going from Kansas to Petra was not a giant transition.
Right.
It kind of felt like, oh yeah, super great harmonies and high voice singing. Love it. And so I got obsessed with Petra. And I just took piano lessons in like elementary school. I wasn't really in a band. I didn't play guitar. I didn't sing. I didn't do none of that. But Petra was kind of the one thing that made me start thinking about like being in a band and wanting to learn how to write songs. And so I started taking two different kinds of piano lessons. I had classical, and then I started taking piano lessons from our church piano player who just taught me how to chord. So it wasn't reading music or anything. It was just chording and praise songs, actually.
Yeah. Practical, yes.
Yeah, real practical playing. And that's when I started to figure out writing kind of my own songs. Which, interestingly, you guys would get a kick out of... which another comment you made in your podcast, which is funny, but there's a riff in Body Bee that I wrote when I was like 12, 13 on the piano. And it's that the dun dun ba ba dun ba ba dun ba dun ba dun ba 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 dun ba. I wrote that when I was like 13. When we were in the band, 10 years later, we're just struggling. Like, oh, we need a different song. And I was like, there's this thing I did on piano when I was like 12. It's kind of stupid. And I don't know. And Oren kind of took it and we brought that riff in and the whole entire song was built off of that riff.
But it was too chuggy for Clifton.
Yeah, Clifton.
Yeah, I don't like chuggy music. That's my taste.
No, what I thought was hilarious is they both kind of liked Body Bee. Right. But they just couldn't help moving on from it without saying something shitty about it. So then Clifton, so here's what he comes up with. Clifton goes, you know what? I think it was Clifton. If you listen to the song without the singing, it's really boring.
That was definitely Clifton.
Well, every fucking song is boring without the singing. God, that's a stretch.
Because you're going to hear tung kung.
Both of them are like, I kind of like it. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're actually going to like one. And then he's like, well, I mean, it is boring without the singing.
And the Jay, I could hear you just go, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
That was hilarious.
I've done that to him. Like, he says something and I'm just like, okay.
Is any song good without the singing?
Some, yeah.
Oh, okay. What, like a Rush song?
Body Bee though is a good song. I think.
Yeah, I will. I Body Bee holds up. We still do enjoy that song. Yeah,
it's funny.
Hey, they were on MTV.
They were.
Oh, you guys are good sports. Thank you.
That's one of the
100%.
It's one of the messages that Dan aggressively sent me on Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh, we're good sports. I get shit all the time because on our podcast I always mention touring with the Statlers, and he always mentions being on MTV. So people make fun of us.
Yeah,
Oh, you toured with the Statlers, and you know what I do? I rebut and I go, "Did you?"
Right. It's great.
Fair.
Did
Yeah.
you?
Like, were you on MTV? Right. Yeah.
No,
Oh, it's
my claim to
hilarious.
fame. Damn it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, but I
hilarious.
think in as much as we kind of made fun of that because it's a little tropey, but
It's great. I love it.
but that's something unique about 90s music that 80s Christian music was a thing, rock music, I'll say. But when it came to the 90s, there's just so many, like, I don't know what it was, but there's so much stuff happened all of a sudden. And all of a sudden there was just like, it only lasted about a decade, by 2002, it was kind of over. But all of a sudden there were just all these rock and alternative bands that were just putting out great music,
Yeah.
and some of it was not great, that's fine, but there's just so much good music that came out, even as much fun as we want to make fun of the Newsboys, but that's good music, I mean, most
Right?
of it.
Yes.
So it's just this really weird thing that it's culturally, I don't think other generations have that to look at, and that's kind of one of the things I think is kind of weird about our youth, at least, is that looking back on that, there was just like this weird perfect storm that happened in the 90s where we had all this weird, not traditionally church music, Christian
Right.
music that was just
And Tara and
Great.
I have talked about it. It seems like a clean sweep of all of it, not just Christian.
90s in general.
Like
90s in general.
pop music was good in the 90s.
That's true.
Rock music was good in the 90s.
I did nothing but country in the 90s, and it
Yeah.
was awesome.
Country music
True.
had its awesomeness.
Yeah.
It's like, of course, a lot of people still love the old school guys, and now it's kind of gotten this bro country thing. But 90s
Right.
still kind of, I mean, there's some Shania Twain shit I can
But-
dance around the room to, man.
The
when
nice
I
thing-
did, when I sang "Any Man of Mine" at a bar in Omaha, Nebraska, on the bar, walking across there with my half shirt, people went fucking nuts. The 90s country was awesome.
yeah.
It just seems like a lot of music was good
Yeah,
back then. And I don't know.
I agree. Even 90s country. The nice thing about 90s country is you had kind of like your George Strait, your older, older country,
Yeah.
kind of still there while Garth Brooks was coming about, and
Yep.
so it was just
Right.
that's kind of the unique thing about 90s country is that so that was good. And sorry, back to what I was saying about the MTV thing is that a lot of that Christian music, although it got written off, I think commercially and a lot, Body Beat deserved to be on MTV.
Right. Yeah.
Probably-
It was
probably-
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably a lot more deserved to be on MTV, but the fact that you guys made that happen is great.
Yeah.
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 It felt like so much hope. It just felt like we
Yeah.
were going to usher in like all of us, and we were being told that.
Yeah.
We were being told that music's going to make a Christian shift,
Mm-hmm.
and Johnny Q. Public's going to be kind of the Gandalf of this shit, like and then Jars of Clay passed us up. But
Oh, yeah.
anyway,
Right?
we were supposed to be the ones to kind of help everybody cross that secular line,
Mm-hmm.
and then it just didn't work that way,
Yeah.
for whatever reasons, but it kind of had that feeling. And
Mm-hmm.
it's been funny to me to talk to some other people, though, even like Greg Voltz, or even in our interviews with anybody that we talk to in our podcast. Everybody kind of has that thing that they just will not shut up about. Like,
Yes.
I toured with John Mellencamp one time.
Right.
I didn't, but I'm saying somebody will be talking to me like, and every single time you talk to him, it's like, well, I mean, I played with Mellencamp,
Yeah.
for like 6 shows. I play, and they're like 60 years old,
Holding on to
and
it.
they're still talking about playing with Mellencamp for 6 shows. It's like us musicians. I don't know if we're just so infatuated with ourselves or what it is, but it seems like we all latch onto something.
Well, that's kind of why our podcast was called Unsung Dreamers, because we have lived that life, just like the paragraph that you read on that episode. We have lived that. We almost got there, And I had a thing when I was when I was with the Statlers, they were pitching me to record labels and all of this, and I just missed it, you know.
Yeah,
That's how Reba got started. Reba McEntire got started opening for the Statlers.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
wow.
so they were telling Tara, like, you're going to be the next Reba.
Right.
And it just
And I had
didn't
3
work.
or 4 labels look at me and all this other stuff, but it was just like, we have reached that little thing. You were on MTV. It's just like you know. So at 50 now, we're sitting there just going, yeah, you're damn right. I'm going to talk about that all the time.
Yeah, it's fair. I mean, it's a formative experience, you know.
Hey,
it's funny.
side note, but your discussions make me think of this. Have you two seen the movie Electric Jesus?
No.
Okay, you have to watch this.
Yeah, it just came out to I rented it on Amazon Prime. I think it's on some other services too. It's basically about this fictional Christian band called 316 that is kind of like a Striper ripoff, I guess. And this is the summer of 1986. It's a movie. It's a film, and it's just kind of about their journey of trying to get signed and all that. But it's so true to the Christian world at the time. Like, you know, Daniel Smith from Daniel's Son, he did all the music behind it. It's like got all these like every band they referenced was actually a real Christian band. So if you know, you'll be like, oh damn, and like they play some Striper songs in it and everything. Like, I think you guys would really enjoy it. Clifton and I just watched it. It's
That sounds something like I would love.
I wrote it down.
You'd like it a lot. Yeah,
That
I think
is
so.
cool.
I was curious even too, just to kind of get some of your guys'
we haven't done that
story
yet. I
and
want to do that.
background. Like, are you born, bred, Christian, church, all that, still in it, not in it? What's your stories?
Jay, you want to go first?
Yeah. So I grew up in the church. I don't have a good a story as you do, Dan. It was just I grew up. Parents were Christian. I was raised in the church. I probably went 3 times a week, and I was into it, especially like middle and high school. Like, I loved youth group. That was kind of more my social thing than even stuff in high school.
Yep.
You know, and so. And I came, you know, I'm born in 1980. So I kind of came of age in the 90s as a teenager. And that's, as we were talking about, that's when this music just exploded. And I finally got my dad and some other dads to take a group of us to Cornerstone in 1996. And I thought like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing on planet Earth. Like, it just blew my mind.
Yeah, I was probably there that year.
Yeah, you were probably.
I don't even. That's hard to remember because I went multiple years after that. But maybe, and it was. And I, you know, I'm from like a city. Probably, actually, we met similar size maybe to Springfield, a city in Texas. But it's so far removed. We would never get, especially Christian bands, through there like that. Aside from like maybe Newsboys or something.
Remind me where you're from.
I'm from Amarillo, Texas.
Amarillo.
It's on
my touring band.
It's on Interstate 40. You probably driven through
there. I played there.
But we would never, but I would never see stuff like that's more alternative Christian. So going there blew my mind. And so Clifton and I met in college. We went to Texas A&M and kind of connected. I don't know if we connected on Christian music at first or not, but some kind of music that we liked, and then realized we kind of had a very similar upbringing. For me in my 20s, I feel like I shedded like, not while I was at college. In fact, in some ways I got more religious during college, but after that in my 20s, I feel like I was able to shed a lot of that. In fact, Clifton and I actually both moved to the Czech Republic for a little bit. We taught English there. And that was like, Clifton and I have not really even probably reflected on this together actually, but Clifton, I feel like that was such a positive thing for me to be away from like American Christian culture, because it like, that was the break I needed to kind of step out and think on my own and decide like what I really believed and what I didn't and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so, that was kind of really beginning of me kind of shedding a lot of it. And then I'm grateful. I told you now I'm in Charleston, West Virginia. I've moved a few times since then because of work and my wife's job and stuff. And so being away from it all has really been helpful because I haven't had that pressure of like, you know, being home, these expectations, people you grew up with around you and all that stuff. And so, I'm now probably just comfortable saying agnostic. Like, I'm just kind of like, I don't know, but it took a while, and that's the only reason I feel like I can do the podcast now is because I've had that gap, probably a good like 15 years of really, thinking about it. Do I believe this? Do I not? Where now I can come back to this stuff and kind of go, oh, yeah, I really like that song, but those lyrics are fucked up. That kind of
And you
stuff
grew
for
up.
some of this.
Yeah.
Right.
And you grew up.
Right.
Do you still have though? Because me and my brothers, when we get together and I don't know, hanging out around the fire or something like that, we go ape shit to spin that old stuff. I mean, we.
Oh yeah.
Phil Driscoll. Oh my gosh, we loved him. Even some Amy Grant stuff and Sandy Patty when she gets all high on They Could Not. They could not. Oh, we're like bawling, crying, just loving it. Just give me another beer. We love it. So I don't know if you guys look back on it. I mean, it kind of sounds, I haven't listened to every episode, but it sounds like you kind of shit on everybody's records. So it's like,
I listened to clips all day today.
So I don't know if you're, I don't know if you're actually like if that time frame of your life actually sort of bothers you, or if you actually do look back on it fondly and you're just kind of being fun and humorous and critical and all that kind of stuff is fun
because it's entertaining. It is.
It is entertaining,
It is
and the
entertaining, too.
research you do is awesome. But I don't know if you actually really are bothered by some of it, like it was a scarring thing, or do you look back on some of this stuff like you're fond of it, like regardless of what you believe now?
I think
when
it's
I
both.
play, when I play some Petra, like praise ye the Lord,
we're going to the show Saturday.
Yeah, I wouldn't care if I was a Satanist. I'd still be like praise ye the Lord. Shit's awesome.
Yeah,
because it was that formative years kind of thing for me. I'm not that much older than you guys. So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No. I think for me it's both. Right. There's a lot of scars from back then, definitely. But at the same time, like I said, like we wouldn't do this podcast if we weren't celebrating these bands at the same time.
Sure.
Because it's a lot of time
we
invested.
Hear that. We hear that.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah.
And so I took it that way. Like even as far as the Johnny Q stuff, I still took it that way. No matter what was said, I thought it was great that we were even one of the ones being reviewed.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean. I think,
but hearing how much research you guys kind of do and your notes and the way you kind of really cover quite a few things, it's like there's got to be some kind of a hat tip for you to even put that much work into it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I can say for both Jay and I that the Extraordinary was a formative album for both of us. For example, I mean that album was very important to our musical journeys, even though we probably didn't know at the time, right?
Right.
But it's all of this music is important to us. In fact, I got a message on Facebook a week or two ago that said just like, I listened to one episode, I enjoyed the podcast, but I can't listen anymore because you guys are too negative.
Right.
And in fact, the response I sent was, then you definitely shouldn't listen to the Johnny Q Public episode.
Is it the only one you put the warning on?
No.
No. Okay.
Oh, don't.
Right.
You should definitely not listen to the Pocket Change one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's
Right.
some you think Johnny Q Public was bad. There's some real bad. But I feel like we try to find that balance because there's definitely stuff that we like in every album, still. And there's some stuff we appreciate. We just did Curious Fools, who I always label mates with you guys, actually. I forgot back in the day. And like Clifton and I, neither one really are into that now. And I don't think we had a ton of positive things. But honestly, lyrically, some of the stuff they were doing, we still thought was good.
Yeah.
There were some positive points still.
But that's like Curious Fools are good. Like they're good artists.
They were talented. Yeah, they're definitely very talented.
Yeah.
They were. I remember when they were first starting, and we were all hanging together quite a bit. They scared us a little bit because they were not cut from the Christian cloth.
Interesting.
No,
I can see that.
They were kind of like the black sheep of the Christian industry. They started their own record label called Via.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Via Records. And when they would show up at the GMAs, it was totally just like, oh, Via's here. Like, I mean, It was funny. It was actually funny, and partly they were doing it partly to be funny, I think. But they would show up like in limos, like the president of like Forefront Records like showed up in his Ford Escort. These guys would get like a stretch limo and they'd get out with all these rings. It's like Via Records, Christian record label. I liked them. I loved Curious Fools because of their like not give a shit attitude.
You like that, yeah.
It was funny.
Just for clarity, the GMAs is like the equivalent of the CMAs or the Grammys.
I'm sure they know,
or
it's
well,
the
I'm
gospel
saying
music.
for anybody listening.
Well, for anyone listening, it's the Dove Awards,
Yeah.
And it's a whole
Awards.
week-long. It's a week-long thing before the
Just like
actual award show.
Any award show, yeah.
Yeah, so there's bands playing in all these clubs, and there's conferences, and there's radio stations that are gonna meet with.
And there are after parties.
Yeah, after parties too.
Okay.
It is interesting. Huh.
Jay, did you get into any music?
Did I like playing music?
Yeah, like do you play or
no,
write,
I
or-
mean, no, I mean, I was in band and like I know how to play piano, but no, I was never really a musician, just a fan.
But
big time.
what is your kind of, what do you do?
Oh, like job? I'm a teacher.
Teacher?
What do you teach?
I teach 8th grade social studies.
Oh my gosh.
Uh-huh.
How are you struggling these days? Holy shit.
It's terrible.
Holy-
I really
wow.
enjoy doing this podcast. It gets my mind off of it. I told Clifton the podcast was a highlight of my year, man. 'Cause
How
it's
the
been awful.
hell do you touch? Oh my God, middle school social studies right now.
It's bad.
Is that what you studied in like at college? Like literally teaching, or was it English, or was it?
So
You're very lyric focused, so I'm wondering. I'm trying to dig in to find out.
Oh,
You
that's
seem
funny.
to-
That's hilarious. I feel like normally when Clifton and I talk, I'm not usually, but I've been working on it for the podcast. But
Oh, I got you.
no, I studied sociology. I honestly had no idea what I wanted to do. And after getting out, like I said, we went to Prague and I taught English there. And then I was like, oh, I kind of like teaching. So I came back and got certified to teach and
Oh, I got you.
finally got my act together and,
Very cool.
got a job and all
Cool.
that stuff. So yeah.
Cool. You look well read.
Well, thank you.
There's this
They've not all been
giant
read.
library.
I've got a book collecting problem. They're not all
Right.
being read, but
I'm kind of the same
I like
way.
to buy
Yeah.
them at least. So
Yeah.
We're audiobook people. But
Yeah.
so anyway, Clifton, so we got Jay's early years. I want to hear Clifton's early years and
Clifton
all
looks
this
like he might
goodness.
still be involved in
A
music.
little bit,
yeah,
maybe.
you think?
There might be
What's
a
actually
little bit of music.
funny is everything in his camera shot there is the type of stuff. Some of it's literally the stuff that was played on Extraordinary.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Definitely used orange amps.
Yep. There's some
Nice.
Marshalls. There's
And
good
those
stuff.
Fenders are looking pretty.
Yeah, I got my
tasty.
jazz masters behind me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So I grew up in the church. In fact, my parents did not go to church when I was young, but they got kind of sucked into First Baptist Wichita Falls because they had a volleyball like league. Like the whole church was its own league. Like a lot of small churches have leagues together. Like this church was big enough; it had its own league, like in itself.
For volleyball.
Yes, for
different
for
teams in the same
Yes,
church
yes.
that played against each other.
Wow.
Yes. Adult volleyball. Yes.
Wow.
And it was just kind of a social thing at first, and so that's that's how my family got involved in church. And so I grew up in it, rural ambassadors, right, RAs, and when I was younger, spent all the time at church, and our church was huge, so we had literally a bowling alley and a gymnasium and pool
Oh
tables.
shit.
So
Right.
just there all the time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
Like birthday parties were at the church,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's safe. It's safe.
It is.
It's people.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
And so grew up like that, and then into youth group, I think I was saved around like 9 or 10, and then into youth group, I never considered myself a social person, but youth group, I loved youth group, right? Like that was my socializing, right? And my friends there, and especially, the music was very important because it was kind of, I was never part of like the cool kids, because we always had, like me and my friends always had different tastes, you know. So that was always very important. Was that the music part of it was a kind of a center point for all of us, a way to come together and have like a shared culture, right? You know. And then went off to college. As Jay mentioned, we met because of, I think, Just to Brazil, actually, Jay.
I figured it was probably some emo band that we liked at the
time. Yeah. So the university had like a shared network, and you could see other people's computers, and so we all shared music on there, and people would like leave little leave little text documents on their folders that say, "Hey, call me at this number if you want to hang out." You know.
Oh my gosh!
You like literally. This band, right?
Yeah.
This is fall of '99. Yeah. So it's like there's internet, but not
right.
Not exactly.
Yeah.
So and then after that, you know. As Jay mentioned, I went off and worked for a couple of years, and then we moved to Prague. And Prague was very like I've always had anxiety issues, and they've been kind of very formative for me, you know, over the years. And kind of what Prague did for me was it gave me that time away from everything I grew up in to figure out what was culture and what was, you know, like what parts of me and what part of what I believed were just the cultural surroundings, you know, and it gave me a chance to like sort my anxieties from what I actually believed. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so at that time, I kind of just decided to set church aside, kind of just put it over here and not think about it for a while, you know? And over the years, I consider myself an atheist now. Like I don't actively have a belief that there is a God, so that's where I am now. But you know, like I said, I don't think I would change the way I was raised or you know.
So it's very interesting. Jay considers himself agnostic. You consider yourself atheist. That's very, very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I haven't thought about
that. Adds even more depth when I listen to your podcast.
Well, yeah, a little bit. I mean, I've never thought about putting a label on myself.
Yeah.
I'm totally agnostic.
But
right I'm searching.
But I'm definitely not. I'm definitely not what I was in the mid '90s.
Yeah.
I mean, I still really am very spiritual. I still believe in some of these like amazing stories. I maybe believe more in the universe than I do quote unquote God. I mean. So to say there's not a God,
I call him Cupcake.
I mean, well, it just doesn't. That's the thing, is it doesn't matter. You know, I think sometimes even giving God a name, strangely, is weird. If there is some kind of a creator of the whole universe,
right?
I don't know why we are so small in our minds that we have to give him a name. Yeah. Like, well, it's God.
Yeah.
It's like, well, hell, I don't know. I guess that's just humans' way of trying to put understanding on something that is not understandable.
Exactly.
You know? No matter just the universe in general, whether you believe a God created it or not, is just like, dude, there just has to be something. I just don't know for sure what it is.
Yeah. Which is when I say I'm an atheist, like what I said was, I don't actively believe there's a God, right? Like I don't live like there's a God. That's what I mean by atheist.
Right. Yeah, I can't go to church. I mean, I can't even think about it. I've had some people say things like, "Oh man, you know, do you still go to church, brother?" And I'm like, just brother is a trigger word for me.
Right.
Don't call me brother. All right. Don't say you're praying for me. Just stop all that stuff.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I kind of really love just, you know, trying to maybe still make a difference, trying to make people laugh, try to be there for people if I need to be, or have some spiritual advice if I have any, or I'm open to getting spiritual advice. I'm still all into that kind of stuff, but I definitely, my vehicle is not a church anymore. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Not an organized church.
And you know,
go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So I was going to say, you know, that your kind of point there about putting a name on God is kind of, I think, where a lot of the scars come from, right? Is and I don't want to say it's organized religion, because that's, you know, that's kind of
typical.
Yeah.
Even that's tired.
That's easy.
Right. but you know, like when I was going through my anxiety issues as at like 18, 19, you know, when they were like, I was literally like, couldn't get off the floor because of my anxiety issues, you know, my parents didn't say, hey, let's go to a doctor. They said, hey, I'm going to call the pastor.
Right.
And the pastor told me to believe harder.
Right.
You know,
Right.
that's
What the fuck does that mean?
yes, that's
Right.
damaging, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What, it's all
100%.
on me?
Yeah.
I'm 12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I made a joke earlier about being at the bar with all the 90s Christian kids. But there is like some validity in that.
Yeah.
It's like it was so good for a few years and then it just was so shitty. And now you've kind of left us not
Right.
There was like no resolution, there was no closure, there was no, it just was like, hey, here's everything amazing, and then all of a sudden worship bands started getting popular. And I'm like, what the hell? I mean, everything, this shit all sounds the same.
Yes.
Like there is like the top 25 Christian acts right now in the Christian music industry. They all sound the same because they're just doing praise music.
Yeah.
Literally praise music.
Yeah. Thanks, Newsboys.
I know. So it started with Petra Praise. That's where it started. Yeah. But anyway, it just seems like everybody poof went away. Tooth and Nail was gone. Bands like us were gone.
Yeah.
You know, DC Talk broke up, and the whole world fell apart. It's DC Talk's fault.
It's DC Talk's fault.
It probably is.
It probably is.
Yeah.
Blame them.
I actually said one time, you guys would appreciate this, when we were playing GMAs, we were talking earlier about GMAs, throughout the whole week before the Dove Awards, like I say, different record labels would do takeovers of different bars down on Broadway. This was back when Broadway was kind of dead. Literally,
we're talking Nashville for
literally
the listeners.
almost boarded up, dead. Now it's like one of the most,
hopping.
it's like, yeah, Times Square down there now. This is in Nashville. But so anyway, Christian record labels would do takeovers of these places so that they would have a venue to showcase their bands all throughout the week. So we played in this really cool club that was actually put inside of a church. I can't even remember what the name of it was.
Inside a church.
Well, it was a cathedral kind of church, and they had turned it into a bar. And Goatee Records took that bar over, and all of us played there. So when we got up on stage, I actually said from stage, I can't even believe I did this. Toby's wife, I think, still hates me to this day. I got up on stage, and this was when cell phones were just breaking. This is like they were just breaking. They were just little flip phone type things,
or the Nokia. Everybody had the
you
Nokia.
had to still you had to still pull the antenna out in order to actually even talk. It was even pre-Nokia.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
This is when it was first happening. And so it was like it was like a thing. Like when we went there, a lot of people in Nashville had them. A lot of people in Springfield still didn't even have cell phones. So I said from stage, like, I would like for everybody here to silence your cell phones while we play our show.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of like a mumble. And I was like, oh, I know. If Toby would just silence his, I'm sure the entire city of Nashville will be silenced simultaneously. And I thought it was hilarious.
It's pretty funny.
And he was there. His wife was there. It was a Goatee Records thing.
Speaking of DC Talk, how much loathing do you have in your heart because they put out Jesus Freak the same year that Extraordinary came out?
It's hilarious. I have double loathing because all the guitar parts on Jesus Freak was our guitar players.
Was Oren.
Yeah.
It was
I
Oren.
knew it. Right.
Okay.
It was Oren and Sean.
Oh,
They're the
nice.
ones that played the guitar parts. They recorded
Every
that
bit of
song
it.
a mile away from where we were recording. We were recording Extraordinary. They were recording Jesus Freak. And Toby and Joe Baldridge wanted to use Oren and Sean to do the guitar parts of that song. And then it all came out at the same time. And of course, they swept all the Dove Awards.
And the Dove Award goes to.
We were nominated. Johnny Q. Public was nominated for 5 Dove Awards that year. And we didn't win one single one of them.
Not one.
In the CCM charts, we were number 2.
Just right there.
And Jesus Freak was number 1.
Fucking Jesus.
Body B was number. I still have the fucking magazine. It's got DC Talk, Jesus Freak, number 1. And Body B never made it above number 2.
Yeah.
Okay, so while we're talking shit on DC Talk, Clifton and I we're trying to do a Christmas. I'll get to my point, but Clifton and I we're trying to do a Christmas episode, and so we were trying to think of stuff that'd be funny. And I don't know if you've seen there says that, yeah, that's how it's going. There's this really terrible Christmas Christian rap album called Yo Ho Ho. And I'm talking maybe Clifton, 1990, 1991?
No, it's 89.
Oh shit, okay. It doesn't even count.
Hold it up
Sorry,
again.
90 is when it came out, but it was recorded in 89. Okay.
Hold it up again.
Put it up again.
Clifton, hold it up again.
Your screen was, now say something so
say
it switches
something
to
so
your
it
screen.
switches.
Hello,
Clifton.
hello.
There it is.
Oh, there it is.
So DC Talk's song on that, I listened to just briefly thinking could we do an episode about this? And it is so terrible. And so what I guess my question I'm wondering is, and I'm thinking about Jesus Freak, because people still kind of regard that album, like Pitchfork even recently did a review on Jesus Freak, and said this was not a bad album, even though it's in the Christian scene and stuff. But I guess I'm listening back to that and thinking okay, how much of their music did they actually write? Was this just all was there just a lot of money behind this and producers and people in the studio kind of crafted this for them, or did they actually have this vision? You got it. They came a long way. If they did on their own, they came a hell of a long way.
Right. I don't know if I can answer on the inner workings of their actual songwriting, but I do have a story. That you guys would probably appreciate in lieu of answering this question of yours. So, because I do think that, especially Toby, I think all of them were pretty heavy-handed in writing.
Okay.
Now, whether they actually played instruments, I think Toby was more that kind of guy that could get into a room of musicians and be like, hey, on the guitar, if you could play a kind of like that, and I actually write this way. I'm not actually much of a musician at all. I still kind of play the piano, but I don't play drums. I don't play bass. I don't play guitars and anything.
You know what you're hearing in your head.
But I can hear stuff. When I would write with Oren, I would be like, I think it should be like a and he'd be like, I was like, no, and I would be I would be air guitaring in front of him, probably the most annoying thing in the whole world. But I'd be like, no, it's right here, and he'd be like, no, and he'd be like, ooh. That's how I would write with him. So I didn't really write, and I think that Toby probably writes similar to that, because I don't know that he is very fluent on any particular instrument. But with that said, when we were recording Extraordinary, like I say, we were in a studio that was only about a mile away from Goatee Studio, which is where they recorded a lot of Extraordinary. So Toby would stop by every now and then just to kind of see how our record was going, or maybe we'd go do lunch or all together or something like this. One time he pulled me into the control room of the studio we were in, which was actually just in a house.
Toby did.
Toby pulled me into our control room, which was actually just a house in Franklin. And he's like, hey, man, I was wanting you to hear something. I respect your, sensibilities on songwriting and just you guys as a band in general. I've got this idea. So we go back into our control room. He's got it's kind of like a Sony Walkman. It might have been one of those that even had remember those micro tape things?
Yeah. Oh yeah. The little.
It might have even been one of those that had the tiny little tape, but
super cute.
But it had a speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, this is just like a song that I'm working on, and I just wanted to get your opinion. I'm like, okay. So he presses play, and it's literally just a drum beat off of a Casio keyboard. This wasn't anything they were actually recording yet. Mm-hmm. It just kind of had that boop dip boop 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 boop, like that total Casio. It wasn't even sampled sounds.
Cheese
it was
ball.
Just boop dip boop 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 boop. and this drum beat's playing, and he's looking at me like, okay, coming up right after this part, there might have been an acoustic guitar on it, or a little weird, I can't remember. I just will never forget that like this, and he's kind of bobbing his head, and I'm kind of sitting there like, okay, you know,
Right.
listen, I'm brand new, you know, he's like my boss, he's kind of like my boss.
He's your boss.
And he's Toby. I mean, I loved DC Talk growing up. Oh my God. Like they were my heroes, you know? And so I was just having all this crazy emotional feeling. And he's like, just right after this part, I don't have anything written for this part. But then right here, it's coming up right here. I'm thinking of like, what would people think if they hear that I'm a Jesus freak? What would people do when they find that it's true? He stops it and he goes, what do you think of that? And I'm like, it's cool, man. I don't know what to say.
Right.
I wasn't going to shit on him like you guys do. I just was like... I'm kidding. No, I was just kind of like, yeah, man. But I had no reference. I didn't know it was going to turn into what it turned into. It just was kind of like, and you know, of course, I'm like, yeah, dude, it's hooky. He's like, oh yeah, cool. They started recording the song like the next day, and turned it into that. They came and got Sean and Oren. I wasn't even allowed over there. It was like somebody took my puppies. I was just sitting in my studio like. Alone with Brian Duvall. We're just like, what are they doing over there?
And Ken Bassam, the invisible
No, it was
bass
like
player.
your girlfriend was cheating on you, man. It was just like, what are they doing? It wasn't that we weren't allowed, but we just didn't go over to interrupt. And they went and recorded guitars like all day long, and it turned into that damn song.
And if they didn't have Sean and Oren's roaring guitars, that song wouldn't be anything.
Totally.
So that was actually fun. I sort of actually still, like, again, when I talk about still loving spinning some old cuts, I still have hugely fond memories of that whole story and that whole process, and listening to, you know, some of the Jesus Freak songs before they were done. I was actually doing, I'm a contractor also by I build cabinets.
Because you couldn't figure out what the business was that Marlon was on and whatever. What do we do?
Fritz Designs. It's a cabinet shop.
Okay.
And I've done that for a long time. And even before that, I did some kind of remodeling, and I was just like a construction worker when Johnny Q Public wasn't actually out playing. Well, Goatee actually hired me to do some remodeling work on the Goatee studio. So I was actually working on some sheetrock and shit, like in the back of the house. It's actually in a house.
Yeah.
While they were recording, I remember they were doing the Charlie Peacock song, "In the Light." I want to be in the light when you are in the light. I want to shine like the stars in the heavens. And I can't remember what they were recording that day. It might have just been bongos or something. And I'm in the back, like doing sheetrock work going, what the hell? Like I'm in the middle of DC Talk recording this record, which obviously was before it blew up, but I still was like kind of connected to it. So yes, long answer to your question. I was very pissed off about that shit. But at the same time, getting to see like Jesus Freak #1 and Johnny Q Public #2,
Like,
and knowing that our players played on it, we just kind of had this little.
and then you lost the Dev Award.
micro mafia going on.
Mafia.
Yeah, man, we had a corner on the whole thing.
Totes. Right?
Tooth and nail couldn't touch us.
Oh, so good.
Anyway,
and
so
Tooth and Nail appealed to a different sector of the audience, I think. So
yeah, for sure. Did you, Clifton, move on, and are you involved in music?
So I just like playing guitar right now. Like I haven't played music with other people. And
you never got in a band or anything? Or?
Oh no, so I've been in shitty bands. Yeah. You know.
Right.
Sure.
That's great.
Yeah.
I've been in shitty bands.
I'm not a good musician. I just like doing it.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah. Do you write stuff? Do you write?
I can't learn other people's songs. I only write my own. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm perpetually incapable of learning a full song by someone else. One time I learned half of a Page of the Lion song.
Right.
That's about it.
Half
Yes.
of it.
Yes. And then got distracted.
Well, anyway, if you guys wanted to, I thought it'd be funny to go over some stuff.
Some stuff from
One of the things that's hilarious because here's what I really, really loved is that I don't know you guys at all. We've never, not at all. There's
Right.
no connection whatsoever. I don't think you even know any of my friends or anything. So you
don't even know that he doesn't have a sister named Marla.
yeah, Marla is my ex-wife, but you.
We're confirming that for you right now.
No, but it was super fun to hear, like, I don't know, it's kind of like that game Mastermind or something. Like I'm guessing like red, yellow, green, blue, and it's
Right.
like you got the right colors, but they're in the wrong order.
Kind of just,
Okay, right.
just
It was super interesting to hear you guys solely go off
was
of
great.
like internet research. And then the conclusions that you came up with were like,
no.
no, it wasn't.
Some of them were for me. No.
Well, some of it was that, but I was amazed at how accurate some of it was. Just almost like
Right.
the bass
The
player
status quo
thing.
riff.
The bass player thing was cracking
That's
me
brilliant.
up
That was so good.
about like
Should I get that letter?
we just don't know.
No. Okay.
We just don't know what's going on with the bass player. we think it's Ken Bassham.
Does he exist?
He's not on the first record. He's not on the second record. But he's Ken Bassham. He's the bass player.
But he was in the video on MTV.
But he was in the video.
Right,
Like,
yes.
what the hell's going on with this guy? So what had happened was we started recording Extraordinary with a bass player. His name was Jason Hill. And we went into the studio with 5 members of the band. It was the 4 that were, me and Sean and Orrin and Brian and Jason Hill. Joe Baldridge booked the studio in Nashville, and we got down there and we played him all the ideas that we had at that time. And he was like, "You guys aren't ready." And he had booked the studio for a couple months. And he's like, "You guys are terrible. You're not
Joe
ready at all."
Baldridge is a badass.
He's a badass.
He's a
yeah.
badass.
And anyway, he was like, I don't think you're ready to actually start a record. He's like, "But I booked the studio for like 2 months. I've got to make some phone calls so that they can open the schedule back up so that other people can get in here. So I'll probably go ahead and eat 2 weeks here because I have to. That's a courteous thing to do. I can't just call and bail. So let's at least work 2 weeks." So we got in there and we started working. That's where we met the Curious Fools guys. They came over and did some stuff with us that week. We were trying to write on the spot. Joe was just giving us ideas, and then he would leave, and we would just sit and play for like 6 or 7, 8 straight hours, literally. And then he would come back and listen to what we have, and we were just, it was sort of what pre-production is supposed to be before you go record a record. So usually you can pre-produce a song or a record without spending money. So basically we were jamming in a studio that was costing, I don't know how much.
Right.
I don't know how much.
Because they stressed so many times in that episode, there was a lot of money spent.
It was
Definitely
good
seems
for
like it. Yeah.
for a Christian rock band. It was
for a new band.
It was better than
Right.
Tooth and Nail budgets. Let's put it that
Right.
way.
Yeah.
For
So this
sure.
is all on Goatee's dime.
It was not. We actually started this record on our own.
Okay.
At first, we were not signed when we started recording.
Okay.
Okay.
One of the parents of the members was flipping the bill at first. There's a long story there
Which
that
is
I
a
would
gigantic
would
story.
talk to you guys about, but I'm not going to do it on something that's going to be in public.
Got it.
But anyway, and so we ended up tracking that week. Well, I think we were there 2 weeks. I think we ended up tracking Preacher's Kid. We had no lyrics, we had nothing. Just tracking, just getting a song from start to finish with no melody and no lyrics. We tracked Preacher's Kid. Black Ice.
Mhm.
I can't remember. I think there was somewhere around 3 or 4 songs that we ended up keeping those tracks, and they ended up on the record. But we didn't have a complete song. We just got the actual music. And what was I getting at?
You had this.
Oh, the bass player.
Oh, yeah.
So at the end of those 2 weeks, Joe actually got us all together and had a very, very serious talk with us, kind of like a coach would a football team type of deal. And he got us all together. He's like, hey, you guys got to understand, if you're not willing to do this at a minimum of 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, you really shouldn't be in a band at all.
Right.
You literally, I'm talking literally, when you go back to Springfield, you need to get up 9 a.m. and you need to be working on this band from 9 a.m. till 5 o'clock every single day with a 30-minute lunch break.
Joe is intense.
He's like, otherwise you're not a band. It doesn't make any sense. You cannot do this as a hobby. You can't be effing around with it. Just, you got to take it seriously. And we were like, okay, yeah, man, okay.
Cool. Okay.
So then right before we got into the van to drive back to Springfield, our bass player came up and he said, I can't go 8 hours a day. I quit the band.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Like,
Okay.
for real.
For real. He's like, I can't do what he just said, and I'm going to quit.
Yeah.
I'm quitting right now.
And we were like,
we still had to drive.
I say we.
8
I
hours,
wasn't there.
8 hours back to Springfield with him after he had just quit. So Jason Hill probably has some credits on a few of the songs because he actually did play them. We went home and just started woodshedding. We were playing every single day. The band mostly more than me because I still had to work. I was older. I had a job. I had a wife. But they were literally doing what he said. They were showing up at the house at 9, 10 in the morning and playing all day long, writing ideas, sending them to me. I was trying to put them in my car and write to them and write lyrics to them. And I don't know, a few months had passed. And we booked a studio to go back to Nashville to present Joe with X amount of more songs. When we did that, we were able to kind of put together enough songs to do a record, but we had to hire a studio bass player. His name was Wade Janes. And he came in and...
He's been in other stuff, right? Was he in,
Wade Janes is a pretty big studio guy in Nashville.
Yeah.
So he's probably been on a bunch of records.
I know that name from somewhere. Okay.
Yeah. He's kind of a session guy down there, and he's really, really cool. And he came in and finished recording the rest of it. So then we got done with the record. We came back to Springfield, and we were like, we need a bass player. Like, we still don't have one.
Because Ken had quit.
And so we were childhood friends. Some of the guys were childhood friends with Ken Bassham, and we were just like, man, would you be interested in playing bass? He wasn't even a bass player. We were like, do you want to play bass in our band? He was like, yeah, let's do it. So he just started coming over to rehearsal, and they started woodshedding him.
Oh, I see.
Rehearsing the songs that we had just finished recording, but the record hadn't come out yet. It took several weeks, several months to actually get it mixed and get the artwork and get everything all done. And we woodshed Ken in the band, and we started touring. Long story short, by the time, several years later, we kicked him out of the band. We got a different bass player. We recorded our second record, and then it came out with no Ken Bassham on it. So Ken Bassham is legitimately the Johnny Q Public bass player, but he actually got in on the tail end of recording Extraordinary. When we start screaming at the end of the song Scream, one of those screams is Ken Bassham. That's the only credit.
And he was in the MTV video.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And
there you go.
But that's the only credit he has on the record is screaming at the end of Scream.
Poor guy. That poor guy.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm going to pee off my front porch.
Oh, right. Yeah. We're in the middle of Springfield, Missouri.
Are you guys good on time? Do you have a limit?
I'm good.
I can keep going. I'm good. I don't have school tomorrow, so.
Yeah.
Going.
I might need just a quick little break.
He's going to go potty real quick. And so just to get a little bit more background on both of you.
Yeah.
So, Clifton, you're just play music because you love it, or are you playing out?
Oh, no. I just, don't leave this room.
Because that room is ridiculously awesome from what I see.
Yes, it is.
You have so many guitars and so many amps and stuff. So you don't play out at all. Yes.
More
Show me.
here.
Show me some more goodness.
There's my Vox. You can barely see my Vox there.
I hear you. Yes.
I have 4 Marshalls, 2 oranges, and a Vox.
Yeah.
And then don't you have a shitload of Christian 90s CDs now? Like
Oh,
somewhere?
It'll flip. Oh, look
There
at that.
we go.
Oh,
Yeah.
hell yes.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh. I'm going to shut
Christian
up.
one.
Go ahead. Clifton, go ahead and do that again because it didn't
Okay.
show up on the video. Do
Okay,
that
I'm gonna
again.
talk while I
Oh yeah,
do
you
it.
have to be
These-
talking while you do it.
These are my Christian 90s CDs
Look at
from
that.
there down to there. And there's several layers here because they don't all fit. I should have known that I was going to get more CDs than I originally thought I would, of course.
Oh, that's awesome. Very
Yeah.
cool. Very fucking cool.
And-
And I love
And
it.
most of these you've had to like rebuy these, right? Like most of
Yes.
these you did not carry over, like
No, I probably had like
any of
20.
them, right?
I probably had like 20
Okay.
left over, like in like the Julie's rainy days, like only a few, yeah, like 20 probably. Yeah.
'Cause
And so you've had to track them down.
Yes.
And when you talk about sometimes on your show, you talk about, oh, it's on Spotify, so it's so easy. But yeah, I feel you, boo.
Right.
But here's the thing: having that actual shit in your hand,
Correct.
Oh yeah.
is awesome.
Yeah.
Especially like you said, that lyric sheet or whatever it was like,
Mhm.
oh, it was loose. It wasn't even part of the digipack or whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
So that is really fucking ridiculous because that's awesome. We're the same way. We're totally into vinyl right now.
Yeah.
Like vinyl is like. So here's the thing. So we're 50, you're 40,
Mhm.
and these kids these days are all into vinyl.
I know.
It's like,
It's
oh my
weird.
god. Dan has a 20-year-old son and a 13-year-old son.
Yeah.
And the 20-year-old is all into vinyl. And we're just like, yeah, I know.
Who are they listening to on vinyl is the question.
Black Midi. Do you know who that is?
No.
Black Midi. And I will say this, Dan's oldest son is Elvis.
Okay.
Dan's younger son is Bono.
That's awesome.
Just saying.
Very nice.
And Elvis is actually a music producer himself.
Oh, wow.
He was in a band for years when he was 12 to 15 years old.
Mhm.
The Verbing Nouns here in Springfield, they freaking rock the world.
They have a music video on YouTube.
Yes, go the Verbing Nouns Reasons if you're taking notes.
The name of the song's Reasons.
But
He was only like 10 in that video.
he was 12.
12.
He was 12.
But he's 20 now.
He's 20
and he
now.
also has 2 records on Spotify, I think they are. The band's called Galactic Thrust.
And they're freaking awesome.
And they're hilarious. They're
While
like
they were in high school, they recorded this shit in high school. It's all him. It's all
wow.
him.
All the
Engineering,
music is all
recording,
Elvis.
writing.
Yeah.
Him and his
Wow.
buddy. So yes. So
So that's
Nice.
pretty cool. And then another thing you guys might like, you didn't bring up in the Johnny Q episode, but I did a solo record. I don't know if you found it yet.
No.
It's called Fritz and His Cowboy Outfit. It's an EP. I think it's only got like 6 songs on it. Oren actually produced it. And it was done.
He played a little on it.
Oh, he played most of it.
Yes.
It was
It's on
done.
Spotify.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
I
Look
would
at you.
say it's
Look at you.
it's like 15 years old.
It's so good.
But it's got some cool shit. I'm very proud of that record.
Yes.
Those are all my songs. So
It says 2007.
2007.
Yes.
So
Fair.
not
Oh, cool.
15
Let's listen to that.
yet. Yeah.
I don't know how we didn't come upon that. I mean, I guess
Yeah,
if your name isn't really tied to it, it's hard to find.
I know.
'Cause
it's
you are some researching motherfuckers. So
I know. I'm like disappointed.
I'm so
Oh, well.
proud of you guys for doing that.
missed it.
But what is funny is that the fact that you didn't know that we build cabinets for a living. So,
Right.
I don't know what he does. Blah blah blah. We don't know what his business
Yeah,
is.
Fritz Designs and I think you said something about you couldn't find anything on the business, but we do
Yeah.
have a Facebook page.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't think to. I never think about
You-
looking at Facebook for
You
businesses.
didn't think to look
Yeah.
at Facebook?
Yeah,
We do
like,
have a Facebook page.
Anyway.
I'm an
Fritz
architect.
Designs.
I'm an architect.
okay.
And,
Oh, are
and-
you?
And as an architect, I have a huge respect for cabinet builders, by the way, because I could
Right?
never do that. Like it's
Dude.
just, it's so.
You should
detailed.
check it out because I do like really custom stuff. I do.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of high end custom homes. I don't do
Okay.
the spec house
Yeah.
apartment cabinets.
Cool.
So everything we do is like super elaborate and crazy and gothic and all kinds of weird stuff.
Very nice.
So check it out.
So I still
Fritz
do.
Designs.
I'm still creative
Yeah.
in my life, just not
Have to be, right?
Yeah, not really writing.
And we make a living, and
performing music as much.
we pay for food and shit.
And music instruments.
Yeah,
Yeah, a couple. And I work there too.
yeah. It's just me and Tara. Now
That's
it's
cool.
Yeah.
And we have some subcontractors that we sub stuff out to, but yeah.
So on the business that you might have found with Marla's name on it, yeah, of course, Fritz Designs and Concepts is still like out there in the ether with her name on it, which is great. We have a great relationship with his ex-wife. So.
Yeah, we're
But
fine.
Marla, just to clarify, we joked earlier, but Marla is the ex-wife, the mother of his children. So just FYI, and she is an amazing writer / lyricist. Like she's a good writer.
One
She's a
thing you
good
guys
writer.
got 100% right was the and it's kind of not super hard to figure it out, but we were a band for probably less than 6 months
Yeah.
when we started already getting label interest.
Right.
And because I almost brought this up like 3 times already, because it's so weird in Christian music that happened, because Tara, as you talked about, like you spent years like legitimately doing professional things and still struggled to get on a label. Whereas Christian bands, if you're halfway competent, it's like, do you want a label contract?
Right.
As long
Right.
yeah.
Yes.
Listen, as long as you're singing about Jesus, you're getting
Yeah.
signed.
Yeah.
Oh, the JPM.
For real.
The JPM thing.
I've got an interesting story. We almost signed to Forefront Records before we signed to Goatee.
Really?
We were that close. I mean, we were literally, contracts were being written. We were being wined and dined. I mean, we were being taken out to dinner. We were given a tour of the Forefront Records facility, which ended with free hats and free T-shirts. I mean, we were going to be the next big thing on Forefront. And Eddie DeGarmo was actually the
of DeGarmo and Key.
Right.
of DeGarmo and Key.
Oh,
He
yeah.
was actually the president or CEO or whatever of
Yeah.
Forefront. So when we were recording on the second phase, when we actually came back, and I was telling you, and we started actually getting melodies and lyrics and songs structured together a little bit, and he was going to be the guy that basically flips the bill. You know, basically we were going to get paid back for the money that we put in. So the label was still going to be financially burdened with it. They just weren't in the beginning.
Right.
Anyway, so he came over to the studio one time, and I also wanted to kind of quickly take this time to go back to the shitting on DC talk and all that. I love this. I mean, I'm having a great time with you guys, but Toby Mac is one of the coolest fucking dudes I've ever met in my life. He is a straight up good dude.
He's a good human.
That's cool. That's good.
And Eddie DeGarmo, I have no issues with him either, but so he comes over to the studio and we play him. This is kind of a normal thing. Like your record guy comes over and he wants to kind of hear how things are going. So he listens to about 4 or 5 of our songs. This is after they had already told us, like, we're signing you. And so we're like, okay, cool.
This is Forefront.
I was the only guy in Johnny Q Public that actually had a Christian music background. So I'm like shitting myself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm shitting myself that Eddie.
Because you knew who he was.
Oh God,
Yeah.
I mean, I've waited 7 hours in line for Eddie DeGarmo.
Right.
I was the kid. I was the nerd on the front row, just like DeGarmo and Key. I was a piano player, so Eddie DeGarmo was like a god to me.
Like Boycott
So-
Hell and all those songs. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Those songs, yeah.
And 666, yeah, all that shit. Anyway, and so he's listening to our songs, and we're sitting on the little couchy thing behind him. After he's done with a couple of them, he spins around in his chair, and he's like, "Man, I really, really like it. I just wish there was a few more JPMs." And
Do you know what that is?
I'm
I'm
just
guessing
like,
Jesus is per minute.
yeah. I'm like, what do you mean by
Wow, he actually
JPMs?
said that.
And he said, Jesus per minutes. I was like, I don't think we're going to sign with you. I didn't say that to him,
Right.
but I mean, as soon as he left, I was just like, guys, we can't do this. Like if that was actually his first response,
Jesus per minutes.
Jesus per minutes.
Yeah. So that surprises me 0%.
Well,
Right?
I know.
Yeah.
It crushed me.
Yeah.
It crushed me in some ways, because I totally was getting into Christian music when I was 12. That would have been like 1982, 83. And DeGarmo and Key were like my heroes, and Petra and these kinds of bands. And Johnny Q Public specifically was trying to not be the JPM band. We were the ones that we're not going to sing about, big house with lots and lots of food. Like, we're not going to fuck it. Are you? It's my father's house. I'm just like, oh my gosh, something's got to change. So we sort of specifically got very poetic about things. We were kind of, some of our subjects were like kind of hard to understand, but that's what we wanted. We didn't want it to be JPMs,
Right.
Not that we were trying to be a secular band. We were definitely still serving, towards Christian kids. I mean, but we didn't want to be just so kind of blatant and gratuitous about it. So we were just like, man, I don't know about that. And that was when Goatee was just like, we don't have the money because we were only one of 4 acts that Goatee had at that time. And they had already blown their wad on their first 3 acts, Out of Eden, Christ Safari, and Grits.
Oh, Christ Safari.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. I forgot about I remembered Grits, Out of Eden. Wow. I forgot about that. Yeah. Okay.
Christ Safari actually played Springfield, Missouri, like freaking 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
What?
Yep.
Yeah. I didn't get to go because I didn't get to go because I was out of town. But a buddy of mine who's a big Johnny Q fan, he's like, dude, Christ Safari's coming to Springfield. I was like, they're still doing it? What?
Right.
Kidding me? Oh my God. It's probably like one guy, that's original. So anyway, that's how we kind of got on with the Goatee thing, because they came in and they were like, we kind of blew our wad. We don't have very much money. We'll do the best we can for you. We'll, and we still want to have, like, they had the hip hop, they had the pop with Out of Eden. They had the Jamaican kind of thing going on with Christ Safari, and we want a rock band.
Yeah. Right.
And we were like, we love that attitude.
Yeah.
And that's why we ended up
and they
signing
loved it. Yeah.
with them.
Yeah, I think
so is that kind of explain like the kind of lack of cover art, like the very plain, like extra,
because
like,
of the
that
budget?
I don't know. Is that why? Or was that?
No, actually it's funny because, and I was razzing you guys a little bit on my Monday morning show, but it's like the name of the record is Extraordinary.
Right.
So the artwork was Extraordinary. So I think it was more literally just that. Like we had the digipacks were more expensive. They were more expensive than just doing.
FYI. FYI.
Interesting.
They were more expensive than just doing jewels. And so they were fine with spending money, on the record. But I think I don't even think we had much say in the artwork. Joe Baldridge actually kind of was a little handed in some of our naming of the record, the order of the songs, the artwork. He was actually doing some communication with the label about our artwork. And I think that was kind of just his idea, was that Extraordinary is the name of the record, and the artwork was just very, very, very ordinary.
Got it.
Like it was kind of going down that road.
Right.
So
I will say though that I remember as a kid seeing it on the shelf, and like the blue, I think I called it blue and silvery in the episode. But that's what stands out to me in my mind. Like back to seeing it on the shelf was like it had this like iridescence about it, right? Like
yeah. And even the spine's that way, because it's funny whenever I go to some of these like CD resale shops or record shops, because I'm so vain and into myself, I will go see if they have my record there, and it only takes me 2 seconds to look.
Right.
As soon as I go to Jay, I just look for the blue stripe, and if it's there, I'm like, boom, there I am. So it was. Maybe it was a good thing that it was so plain, and
I think so. Yeah, I think it works.
And it fits the name of the album for sure. For sure.
How did you guys decide to do the hidden track at the beginning? Because back in the day, I thought that was like the coolest thing ever, because I'd never seen that on anything else. And I love the like whispering, like the rewind at the beginning.
Totally. Oh my God, it's so.
Because we didn't really have the internet yet, so it's like friends were talking. Like, did you hear that part at the beginning? Like, what? And you turn it up, and it was just it was a really cool thing.
That the person actually saying rewind is Joe Baldridge. That's him doing that.
It's the producer.
And that whole idea was his. I don't know how he knew that we could do that. Like, he's like, I'm gonna figure out how to put a song in the beginning, and we were just like, okay. We just let him go with it.
I actually did a little research on how that was. So it's actually a glitch in just the way CDs work. When I was researching this episode, I read a lot about that because I think I mentioned the episode that I tried to listen to it, and I literally bought a CD player so I could rewind, and I couldn't, like, the CD player I bought couldn't rewind. And then when we ran out of time, we had to record the episode, and I was like, but
was it a new one or an old one?
A new one, and so it wouldn't.
I wonder
rewind.
if finding one like at a pawn shop or a flea market,
if it
would work.
I actually looked on eBay trying to find like an old CD player originally, and I couldn't find one. That's why I ended up buying the one I bought. But
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. That was
so good.
That was all Joe's idea, and the Father Abraham and the Women of Zion and the Sacrifice of Praise. Those, and you guys actually caught, which I forgot we put this in the record, but the Sod Brothers.
Yeah.
That whole thing was we weren't recording for this record at all.
Okay.
We were in the process of overdubbing. So we had already kind of played our songs, and we recorded Extraordinary live, like not like live in a venue, but we didn't build the song. Do you know what I mean when I say that? Like
you all played at the same time.
Yeah, we all played at the same time, and we went for performance. So we would play the same song over and over until we got the one we wanted. And then we moved on into overdubbing, which was whatever. Percussion, guitar solos sometimes, vocals, background vocals, all that stuff. So we were in kind of the overdubbing phase of the record. So we weren't playing. We were taking turns. Like if Oren had to go put a little chinkity part on something, or if I had to go sing something. But we were all still in the studio. So we were getting kind of restless. So we asked Joe, like, before you leave tonight, would you mind setting a mic up in the living room that's hot that we could record? We didn't know much about engineering at that time. So he's like, yeah, okay. So he just put a microphone in the middle of the room. And then I think he might've hooked one more up in case we wanted to sing. So the one room mic was going to pick up whatever we were playing. And then there was another, and he had it all hooked up. So all we had to do was press record. This is back in the 2-inch tape days. So this, we didn't have the ability to just, throw it on like a voice memo or, Pro Tools. There was no Pro Tools.
Right.
We were still 2-inch tape, and I think he was recording this directly to DAT though. So we weren't actually using 2-inch tape. That shit was expensive. But I think he set it up to where we could record directly to DAT. So we were up all night, and we just were like, let's just, I don't know. We started doing these things. The Sod Brothers is Sean, Oren, Dan. That's what the Sod Brothers are. Okay. So it was just the three of us in the studio. And we were like, let's just, I don't know, it's called, we were kind of almost doing it as if it was going to be just a completely joke. Scratch, something totally off the wall, something totally different. And actually, we weren't planning on doing anything with it. Like, we just wanted it. We were fucking bored. We weren't drinking. we weren't smoking.
Drinking.
We weren't doing any drugs. We were good Christian boys. So we're just sitting in the studio from like 10 o'clock all night long and like nothing to do. So we're like, hook a mic up for us. So we did the Father Abraham thing. And then we did the funny thing that about your take on the Women of Zion being the rape culture anthem that we wrote. I was dying laughing.
We were laughing.
Oh, good.
Oh my gosh, it was so good.
All the research that you did.
Oh man,
Clifton. Wow.
It was so good. Like in some weird way, if you look at it with 2021 goggles on, you're kind of right.
You're right.
But the only thing I would say is the reason why it's written so stupidly. That whole like do outstretched neck and all that shit.
Right.
We were purposely making a fucking mockery out of the fact that this shit is in the Bible, people. Like, we were just as mad as you were in your episode when you're like, fuck Johnny Q. Public for writing a rape culture anthem. Like,
Clifton said that.
That's, yeah, I think he said it 3 times. Anyway, we actually had that exact same, like, attitude. Yeah. We were pissed that I was pissed that I stumbled across that.
Right.
I'd never read that in my entire life. I was literally just trying to find stupid shit because Johnny Q. Public actually was trying to expose the fucking church and how stupid and judgmental they are and the shit that's in the Bible that, like, you are just going to push and shove this Bible at me my entire teenage years. And there is scripture in here that supposedly God bald-headed all these women because they were haughty and they were arrogant and they were not focused. I just, those are the kinds of passages in the Bible that I really struggle with. Yeah. It's like this thing was written by what you would now consider terrorists. Right. So the American warlords, the American Christian Western church, they're just not putting 2 and 2 together that the Bible was written by terrorists. Right. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying the Bible was written by terrorists. I'm saying that they are scared to death of anybody that comes from that region of the world, and they would call them terrorists.
Yes.
Those are the people that wrote the Bible. Now, I mean, right?
Yes.
Am I wrong?
But, yes.
So I'm just also like
thousands of years less culturally evolved.
Well, of course, all these things.
Yes,
exactly.
And so the Women of Zion, we did it. There's so much sarcasm on the Extraordinary record that I don't think actually conveyed sometimes. But
and I think, I mean, Jay and I, because I think I smarted off a few times. We're like, so Big Top, for example.
Yeah.
Oh, Big Top! I can't even believe we were allowed to play Big Top on stage.
Right. Yep.
I don't think anyone caught what it was saying, and that's why they let us just keep recording it, I guess. But I mean, even at the end of it, you know, and the record's done and it gets released, I was like crossing my fingers the whole time. Like, I hope they don't hear it. I hope they don't hear it. I hope they don't get it. I hope they don't get it. And then boom, the record's on the shelf, and I was like, yes, we did it. Big Top made it. It is a trashery of modern day American churches. Yeah. It's an absolute trashery.
I'm glad to hear that because that's what I took it as, you know, and I struggled whether or not to say that in the episode because we never know what people are thinking. Right.
Sure.
But that's how it came off to me. And I mean, first off, musically, I love that song because it's silly and I like silly music, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I should say cute music probably. But the lyrics though are scathing. They're wonderful. I really love it.
The homeless people got it all wrong because they need to find investors and build a great big dome. Dude.
Yes.
I think Joe might have played a hand in that lyric, but
yeah.
It's just like, wow, I can't believe. And dude, what was funny is we would get booked at these churches, like at these mega churches.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm doing Big Top tonight. They're so dumb. They're not even going to get it. And it was, and sometimes I would even gesture, you know, under the big top, and they still wouldn't get it. I was like, I am absolutely trashing everything you stand for. Yeah. There's homeless people under a bridge over here. And you guys are building $22 million buildings over here with $500,000 worth of PA equipment. That's exactly what Big Top is.
Like that exact experience is one of the things that drove me just away from the church originally before I decided I didn't believe in God and all that, which that I didn't mention earlier, but that's largely due to reading the Bible. But like I read the Bible cover to cover 3 or 4 times, and it's not a great thing if you want to keep believing in the Bible. But anyways,
it's pretty wild.
Yeah, but at my church, I don't know if you will recognize the name, but my pastor growing up was Robert Jeffress, who is now like he has a show on Fox News, right? And I think the show isn't actually on Fox News; it's on there like online thing where they can say even crazier things than they do on the TV, you know?
Right.
Clifton
But-
would talk about him being an asshole, and I was just kind of like, this is like back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and I always just kind of thought Clifton was like, yeah, okay, you really don't like your pastor. But then I realized who he was, and I was like, oh shit, Clifton's right. This guy's like really an asshole.
But literally, there was a period where we were building a new sanctuary as a church. Like, we were going to spend literally $16 million building a sanctuary. And one day I was up at the church, and a homeless person walked in to see if they could get a drink of water. And the pastor himself chased the guy out of the church.
Oh shit!
Unreal, dude.
Yeah.
Unreal.
No.
Yeah, that's
Nope.
that hypocrisy and stuff is exactly why I'm not in it anymore
That's
either.
why I say I'm
and
still
it's exactly
searching.
what Big Top was written about.
Yeah.
And also, even as Johnny Q Public toured, some of the shit we got was just like, I mean, there was church. I've been kicked out of church after they booked me. We did one show which was like, I don't know, 17, 18 hours away from Springfield, Missouri. We did it under contract. I think it was a $3,000 guarantee, and it was a one-off show, which is we didn't tour to get there.
Yeah, that's
we
rough.
drove straight 18 hours to get there. We set all of our own PA system up. Nobody showed up to the show. Maybe 20 people, 30. At the end of the show, we packed all of our gear back up, and we're in the parking lot getting ready to drive all the way back to Springfield. And the dude comes out and says, "I'm sorry, brother. The Lord didn't provide. I can't pay your guarantee."
Are
No.
you fucking kidding me right now?
It was contract. We had a contract. And he said, the Lord didn't provide. And we had to drive 18 hours back with no money.
Jeez.
And what were we going to do? Sue him? I mean,
Right, yeah, I know.
I know you could have, but you just wouldn't have gotten anywhere. You just
You
had to
can
eat
do-
shit because the Lord didn't provide.
Yeah.
And you talk about getting triggered on freaking religious phrases. And that's why I said earlier, kind of jokingly, like, if somebody calls me brother, hey, brother, like,
Right.
dude, stop.
Right.
Like, if it's done in a religious,
Right, yeah.
connotation. But I don't know, man. It's freaking weird.
Mm-hmm.
Weird times.
You could have done what one of my dad's business partners threatened to do to him, which was church him, which is to bring him in front of the church and accuse him of a wrong. So,
Yeah,
Oh,
right,
wow.
right.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, absolutely.
Holy moly.
Yeah. So there's one thing we should go over that we got wrong,
Okay.
which is the status quo riff.
Yeah. I don't know if you got it wrong. I mean, I think you got everything. What you were saying is
they
right.
didn't know. They
Right.
didn't know. They just didn't
Correct.
know.
Yeah, no, and like basically you got it 100% right, except for the fact that we had to pay like $2,500 to use that riff. Like we were not trying to hide it. I don't know why
Right.
it didn't end up in the credits,
So-
Right, yeah.
but it's
For
probably
anyone
because we
listening-
paid for it.
For anyone listening, let's give a little background. Somehow, both of you guys give a little background to what you're even talking about.
Okay.
All right, so there's a part in Body B where the song kind of breaks down, and we do the guitar riff from a Status Quo song called "Pictures of Matchstick Men," and then the rest of the song just kind of crumbles and crashes, and some of it is Matchstick Men, and some of it is Body B, and it was a musical. We were musically trying to do what the song was saying.
Yes.
Like if
Yes.
our body is not like, working with itself and each part doing its own part, then it literally falls apart. And that's what we did kind of very artistically. We were so arty. We were so smart. We took the two songs and we mushed them together at the end. And then that's how the whole song falls
Right.
apart.
But we're talking about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a
It fits
guitar
so
riff.
well in the song
It does,
too.
yeah.
It's
It
so
does.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
And that was
Yeah.
another
Yeah,
Joe
totally.
Baldridge thing. He was just, we were halfway through tracking that song and he's like, hold on. And he would leave the studio. He'd be gone for like 2 hours. Like, where the hell did he go?
Joe's amazing.
And he came back with a Status Quo CD and he's like, I think we should put this riff in the middle of this song. We're like, shit,
Wow.
okay, whatever. And that's actually all live.
So you guys had never
Yes.
heard this.
No, we hadn't.
No.
No,
Okay.
we were young
Okay,
kids.
It was just
I had never heard it. Joe obviously knew of it and everything because he went directly for that song, and that's actually live. That part, like I said earlier. I mean, it was played. It's not overdubbed,
right? All together, yeah.
Yeah, we all ended, and the guitar players did that in two separate ISO booths. Just trying to hear each other. That's why one of them kind of does the and the other one does it. You can hear it. It's funny. We kept it. Anyway, so then we got the song done and we go back to the label and we're like, hey, we just put a huge Status Quo like chunk of song in our song. So then the attorney at the label's like, shit. Okay.
Right.
We got to figure this out.
Yeah. So he actually contacts the publishing company of Status Quo and he gives them the whole story. This is actually kind of what you do. He gives them the whole story. Here's the band. They're from Springfield, Missouri. They did this one song. They brought in Matchstick Men, all this kind of stuff. And then it's the publishing company's job to decide if they think we're going to blow up big like Nirvana, they might just want a percentage of that song on our record. If they think we're just going to amount to nothing, they might just take a cash payment for now. You know, it's a gamble.
Yeah.
Right. So,
right.
And they kind of won the gamble because, I mean, I think we sold probably around 80 or 90,000 records, I think.
Nice.
I think we were somewhere pushing close to 100. But if they would have taken a percentage, they probably would have made a couple $100 at most because we didn't even use the whole song. We just used that
just
thing.
that riff.
And so they came back and said, look, we will let go of anything if you give us, I can't remember, 2,000 or 1,500 or 2,500, somewhere in this neighborhood of 1,500 to 2,500. Cut us a check for that, and we'll wash our hands of it. Yeah. Because I don't think a Christian band from Springfield, Missouri is going to blow this song up.
And therefore, no credit on the album.
And so, yeah, I don't know why the credit wasn't there. Other than
weird.
Like, knowing our little shitty attitudes we had at the time, we were probably like, fuck them, we already gave them money.
Right. Right.
I'm not going to give enough
Joe,
credit.
Your producer, was probably like, yeah, fuck them. Fuck that.
I mean, I don't know why. It might have just been an artwork flub, but... Yeah, but we weren't being. We never were like.
You didn't intentionally steal something.
Trying to be like, don't let anybody know. I mean, I think it was one of those riffs that was so obvious, especially after that other dude did it.
Camper Van Beethoven.
You guys played it.
Yes.
He even made it bigger than Status Quo.
And what I love is the research that you did, that you figured that shit out. Like, for real.
That was awesome.
That was awesome that you had those two different cuts of that same shit.
Yeah.
That was cool on you guys.
Jay found that. He sent it to me right beforehand. He's like, I need these two clips for the record. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. That was cool. That was cool because the only way you'd find that is if you heard it before. Right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Joe he was a very kind of classic rock guy, and I know you guys picked up on the classic rock influences, but I think it almost was more like, if I was to guess at why they didn't end up in the credits, I think it was kind of more like for us, for some of the people that we were running with at that time, it would be kind of like giving credit to like the national anthem if you put it on your record. Like, duh. It's like
duh.
I think it was just like a duh.
That's
like
Joe. That's Joe.
Joe would be like, everybody knows that was Status Quo, but obviously they didn't. I mean, 15-year-old Christian kids in the 90s had no idea who
Definitely
Status
did
Quo
not know.
was.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, but I think in Joe's head and some of the other people we were running with, it was like giving credit to him is almost kind of like silly because we obviously, like, it seems so obvious.
However, behind the scenes, you took care of it.
Yeah, but it was we paid for it. Yeah, we didn't steal it.
Right.
It cost us money.
Yep.
But anyway, in fact, I think you guys might even be able to help me on this. I don't know how much you're listening to shit anymore, but Body Bee was covered by
K. Something K.
Reliant K.
Reliant K.
Yeah.
Oh,
I did not know that, but that's
I didn't
cool.
know that. I'll have to look that up.
Reliant K covered Body Bee, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, they did not include the Status Quo riff.
Nope.
And it was probably for that
because it would
Right.
cost money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, F that. We ain't paying $1,500.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
I might be wrong on that, but there's some things
That's
missing.
hilarious,
in it,
but I don't. I
yeah,
agree.
that's only a few years old. They covered Bobby
Yeah.
B.
Yep.
So what is dig, be dug, and above all, peace on your head?
100% Joe Baldridge.
Okay.
He just
Threw it in there.
He just threw it in there at the end. Yeah. He was very kind of going back to what we started talking about a minute ago that I don't feel like we fleshed out. But when you talked about we were barely a band when we got signed,
Mhm.
and that is just 100% true. Not to mention one of the guys, Orrin, was 14 at the time, and the other guitar player was 16. Sean was 16. And so
But you were right. He's the oldest member of the band.
no, Brian Duvall's the oldest.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah,
by
by-
like 6 months.
Yeah.
He's
not
the
by
same
much.
age as you. Come on.
Yeah. We're kind of the same. But anyway, so when we got in and actually started doing a record, none of us had ever really done this before.
Right.
Joe had done it a million times. I mean, and so he was like really coaching us. He helped us on everything. If you heard some of the songs we brought him to start Extraordinary, holy crap.
There's so many demos on this.
They're
you can't
so
see it over
bad.
here. But there's
so bad.
so many demos over there.
And we just sort of, he wasn't just like a producer. It was like he was a sixth member of the band. And he really started helping us learn how to write and learn how to put parts in and learn how to bring a bridge in. And so he was heavy-handed in our artwork. He was heavy-handed in our show notes. The idea of putting the chords on all of the songs in the notes, that was all Joe's idea. He's like, I think you should put the chords on the songs. That would be hilarious. Like all the hidden song in the beginning, that was all Joe's idea. He just was like,
the
we
chords
were
are
sort of like his baby, you know.
The chords are kind of punk rock because it's just like, yeah, try it.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Here's how it goes.
Here you go.
Yeah.
Play my shit. Play my shit.
Yeah.
Right?
It's real punk rock until some youth group sends you a video. It's like, hey, our youth group's playing Body Bee. Wanted you to hear it.
Yeah.
And I listened to it and I'm like,
Ooh.
holy crap, what are you doing?
Yeah. There's some
And then, of course,
like
I
that, too.
write back and I say, man, that was really great. That's why I drink beer out of a coffee cup.
And as much as I don't like chug guitars, the guitars on that album are huge. I mean, they're so great, you know.
Yeah. It was all
Orrin is he's modern day Mozart.
Yeah.
yeah. He
Orrin
was
is, I will just say that with all his engineering and all this shit he's doing now, he's a modern day Mozart.
yeah, he's still producing and writing
He's
and
got
recording
hands
records.
in Keith Urban and Carrie Underwood.
wow.
We could drop names all
Wow.
night. He's
Yeah.
fantastic. He's incredible. And he's so modest, and I love that guy.
Yeah, because
I
that doesn't
love
show
that
up on
guy.
Discogs.
Right. Right.
The website get Discogs where it's kind of like the IMDb of music, you know. Yeah, it's just like
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Joe has actually legit been engineer on some pretty big records. Like he
True
actually won a Grammy,
He won
I
some
think
Grammys.
for
Carrie.
you guys know that cut Blue
Blue from Keith
by-
Urban.
Oh,
Keith
yeah.
Urban. Darling, you
Mhm.
and that the music has that really kind of that sound.
Edgy.
That's all Joe Baldridge.
That's true.
Interesting.
So he's still working. He just does a lot of country stuff now.
There's a lot of the bands that we cover on the podcast need that heavy hand producer, and they're really
Yeah.
missing it, you know.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Even
Agreed.
even as good a bands who are good as artists as Curious Fools, they needed that and they didn't have it because they self-produced all their albums, and there's no one telling them no or try again. You
That
know,
was the
Right.
conclusion we came to with them.
Yeah.
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 That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, Joe was incredible at that. In fact, he told us a story about a Keith Urban song. I wish I could dial it up and tell you what it was. But there's a guitar picking thing that is the same throughout the whole song. But it's kind of like this something along those lines. And he wouldn't let Keith copy paste it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, I want you to play it on the whole entire song.
Of course, yeah.
Keep
And
playing
Keith's
it.
like, my hand is cramping up so bad,
He's
I
like,
can't do it. And Joe's like, yeah, you can.
Yeah.
You can do it, and you're going to do it. We're not going to copy and paste this, even though it was literally
the same riff.
like the same riff for the entire 3 or 4 minute song. And he made Keith play it live or whatever as a performance for the entire 4-minute song.
Yeah.
And he was hating him.
And it's awesome.
He was like, I hate you, Joe Balders. He was like, I know, but you'll thank me later. You'll be proud of it later.
Keith is.
Yeah, because it's so different. I mean, you can tell once, and you can, I'm not gonna say that most people can say, hey, that's copy and pasted all the way through, but when something, because it's those imperfections that make really that's what rock music is. That's what
Amen.
Real heart music is,
But he was good at saying no, kind of to Jay's point. Joe was really good at saying no. We brought him a song towards the beginning that we thought we were rock and roll gods. Like, I can't believe we came up with a song this good. Like, we're going to be huge, bro. We're going to be huge. And so we brought it down to him. We had a demo of it on a cassette tape. And we play it for him. And we're sitting there and we're just watching him and we're listening to the music. We're just like, he's going to freak at how much we're all going to get rich off this song. He stopped the song before it even finished and he goes, nope, Pearl Jam. And he went right on to the next song. We were like, that was our best cut. And he was like, no, it wasn't. It was Pearl Jam.
Wasn't he like, didn't he mock you? And he was like, oh, you want to sing low now?
No one's ever sang low before.
Fucking Eddie Vedder. Like, he's already doing that.
Yeah. So, yeah, we thought we were gods. He was just like, nope, not doing that one. Too much Pearl Jam.
And that's what more of these artists need, honestly. There's so much good producing lacking and so much of that music. And like I said, as much as we love a lot of this music, it's just missing some of that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think budget did have something to do with that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people were trying to record records for like $5,000 and $10,000, which is just impossible.
Yeah.
I mean, especially back then when we didn't have Pro Tools. I mean, now everybody's a damn rock star because they're recording records in their bedroom. You know what I mean?
Your son Elvis produces a lot of.
Yeah,
cool
I mean
shit.
Elvis's stuff. I'm super proud of the Galactic Thrust stuff that he's doing, and it's good, but it's just bedroom rock. I mean, it's
bedroom rock. You coined that right here.
I don't know if I coined it. I've listened to it and heard it on other podcasts where people talk about. I listen to a lot of podcasts of like audio engineers and stuff like that. I kind of still geek out on shit like that, and it's kind of become a thing, like. Bedroom rock stars.
Yeah.
Well, Billie Eilish, are you kidding me right now?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's basically what she is.
Billie Eilish, like her and her brother, and it's like boom, and now she's the biggest thing ever.
And you don't need big studios, and you don't need 2-inch tape, and you don't need all these. Back in the day, I don't know if you guys have ever researched some recording when guys used to show up in the studios with lab coats. Remember, like back in the day,
Lab coats?
Yeah, recording studios used to be like. The engineers would come.
Oh.
I mean, I'm talking back in like 30s.
Oh,
30s,
30s.
40s,
Wow.
50s, like old school stuff. Yeah, even the 60s probably too, where like you were a band that was going to go record, and then you had to kind of wait for the technicians. They were the only ones that knew how to run the machines.
Right. Yeah.
Like literally, and they would wear like white lab coats like down to their knees, like they were the audio engineers.
You have to have an outfit if you don't have an outfit for your profession, you're not doing it right because
Exactly.
people can't tell. Yeah.
But some of that equipment back then, nobody knew how to run it. And so these guys would kind of show up with their like, would you like to record? With their white lab coats.
Even back to Jay and I did a student radio back in college, and there was one guy who knew to run all the equipment. If something broke, we were just like, well, guess the radio station's down for a while.
Exactly.
True.
Exactly.
Right. Yep.
And it did break.
Yep.
Yeah. And they still have those guys in studios now, but it's just like the guy. Like that's
Right.
actually Joe Baldridge is probably more of an engineer than he is a producer. But
Oh, absolutely.
And he would have assistants, and they don't wear the lab coats. They're just kind of regular dudes now. But
Freaking hilarious.
there's weird things.
They wear sandals now. It's fine.
They wear sandals now.
The technicality of recording is just fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
What all it takes to kind of figure that kind of stuff out. So anyway, it's pretty wild.
I still struggle every episode to make our talking not sound horrible. So
Yeah.
Right.
I do the same thing every single time. I'll listen to ourselves like, oh, I should probably add some 3K.
Yeah. Yep.
Need to put a de-esser on that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So anyway, what else?
Let's just touch on a couple of. I just want to go back into the episode. Like this has been fantastic, and I love the conversation. It's like like you said, it's like Joe Rogan-ish.
Yeah, we're just talking, man.
It's
We're
just a freaking conversation. But I want to go back and maybe right some things that you had wrong.
Yes.
Like no, not that you guys were wrong. Like I don't want to fucking jump on you, but there were some things that you were just like, oh, I don't know this,
right.
And now we can clarify that.
Yeah, and that was so fun.
Yeah,
it was so great. Like you did so much research, and then it was like, oh, if you had just gone 5 minutes more.
Well, what are you talking about? Because we righted the fact that Marla's my ex-wife.
Right.
The Sod Brothers is Sean and Dan.
Yes.
And it wasn't ever meant to even be on the record.
Yes.
I do have a wonderful story about Sacrifice of Praise.
Oh, totally. Oh my God, that's brilliant.
And then Ken Bassham, I think we got that.
We covered that. But you also said there were no other significant bands from Springfield, Missouri.
Yes.
Oh, that's a pretty funny one.
So Dan actually sent me Dan sent me a message on Facebook that says Springfield, Missouri, home of King's X, Ozark Mountain Daredevils, Someone Still Loves You, Boris Yeltsin, Brad Pitt, John Goodman, Kathleen Turner, Bass Pro, and Cashew Chicken, you SOBs.
Right.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. I was a little wine buzzed that night.
It was a little bit.
Yes, you said that next.
Yeah.
So I also want to say that we found out about your podcast through Marla Fritz.
Yeah, actually,
his
Marla's
ex-wife.
the one that sent me.
Interesting.
How did she know?
I actually don't know.
We don't know.
I don't know how she found it, but she's been like a huge U2 fan, like since late 70s, like back when they really first started.
Thus, his son is named Bono.
That's
just saying.
Right.
One of the reasons my kid's name is Bono. So she sends me this big long text, like, it's just amazing how people can just get a platform and just start a podcast and just say whatever they want when they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And they just this and that and that and that and that and that and that. And I texted back to her. I said, oh, who's shitting on you too? Because usually when somebody says, when someone says anything bad about you too, boy, I mean, she just goes ape shit. And then she sent me a link to your podcast and she goes, actually, it's you, smart ass, and sends it. And I'm like, what the hell? What's going on here?
And listen.
And so then, of course, I jumped on right away like, oh, I got to hear this. This is great. But she was going crazy. But a couple of things I was going to say about that is part of that whole being a brand new band when we first started getting signed and all that.
Yeah.
I did count on Marla for writing.
She's a good writer.
With me a lot because at that time I didn't really consider myself much of a lyricist at all. And there was literally times we were in the studio and I'm like,
dude,
in the vocal booth, like trying to record. And I think I did finally, I'm trying to think if I had a cell phone. God, it was so long ago. I might have had anyway, somehow I was
early.
I think it was actually phone call. I don't think I had a cell phone. I think I would have to take a break from singing
and go call her.
And I would go call her. I would tell her, don't leave the house. Like, don't go grocery shopping. It was those kinds of days.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would literally take the phone at the studio and call her and be like, hey, we're on verse 2. So what do you think?
Wow.
Like, should we say and she'd be like, okay, I wrote some stuff since last we talked, which was like 20 minutes ago. What do you think of this, and that? And I'd be like, okay, I'd be writing it down. And then I'd be like, well, I don't know. That one word's weird. It's like, okay, stay at home. Don't leave. I would hang up and I would go sing it. I would sing what she fucking just told me to sing, you know? So she did actually have a hand in a bunch of the songs, several of them. And
that's hard, by the way.
Right.
Oh, it was crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
It was crazy. She would literally be at home, like, and I would just, phone would ring. I would at 11 at night. Hey, I need a second verse for Black Ice. So work on that. I think we're going to do it tomorrow. Click.
Okay.
And she would be like,
Wow.
she wasn't there. She wasn't in the spirit. She wasn't talking to Joe. She wasn't working with the band. She's just at home in Springfield, Missouri, on the couch, like sipping, you know, probably wasn't even sipping wine.
No.
Then. We were such good Christian kids.
That's good Christian kids.
Probably watching
No
something
kids.
on TV.
No kids yet.
No kids yet. And she would just get an 11 o'clock at night phone call, like, I need a second verse to Black Ice.
All right, let's grab that.
And then
frickin'
she would
pen.
write, and she always wrote pretty long form. And then I would basically just edit it. I would chop
Okay.
it back into being like a verse or a chorus.
Because I can't tell you how many times like I've been like, this syllable doesn't sound right for a song, like, you know, and like just struggle over a syllable.
Yeah.
To, you know,
Yeah.
so to be able to go into a booth and just and to construct that together is
Well, it worked out kind of cool because the fact that she didn't even know how the song went yet,
Right. She was just writing words.
she was just
Yeah.
writing words. And so
lots of them.
she would just write, just like basically just kind of like a mind dump, you know, onto a page. Then I would take 20 lines that she just sent me, and I've got to get this in 2 lines.
Right here.
So I would just go in and start crossing out stuff that wasn't important. And that's how we wrote Violet. So when you listen to the song Violet, which I think is a good counterpart.
You skipped.
You guys skipped it
we
on your
can't do
show,
every
but
song.
I know,
Right.
I know.
Fair. I got a comment about Violet in a minute.
But Violet is kind of like an amazing counterpoint to the bald women.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the whole song, and not a lot of Christian bands were covering this subject at the time. Violet is basically about these women who get with these fucking douchebags and destroy their soul and their guts from the inside out by treating them like shit. And they're just left with nothing. And the chorus of that song is, little flower, lift your face, you know, stand in the shower of God's grace, because we were very pro women need to be treated like goddesses. The Women of Zion song was specifically done sarcastically, and that's why even musically it was done sarcastically.
And
but
making
Violet was
fun of the fact that was in a Bible verse.
Right.
yeah, but I mean, and we covered that, but Violet was specifically like, no, this is actually what we really think, you know, and how we really feel like women should be treated. And Marla and I worked on that song together. She would send me a giant whole page of stuff.
Shit
And so
tons.
you can hear it when I'm singing it. Petals of a gesture fall, tokens costing her soul. Hat in hand she stands under the weight of regret. Now, I
Do you have that in
came
front
up.
of you? 'Cause-
What was that?
do you have that in front of you? Or did you just
No.
still remember that?
No.
No,
it's
I'm
not.
I still remember it. I was
Wow.
pointing at a paper just to kind of,
No, it's not right here.
but you can hear it kind of being spoken in these fragmented kind of sentences.
Right, yeah.
What I got from Marla was like, you know, there's a girl who received the flowers and the petals fell at the floor, and at her feet she was heartbroken, and I just fucking 2 paragraphs of shit. And I was like, Marla, I've only got like 30 seconds to get this in there. But that's how it worked that way. It worked that way. So I would just take her big, long, full 1.5-page poem, and that's why it sung so broken like that. Because I was like, the most important thing about these first 4 lines is petals of a gesture fall. You know I'm talking about a flower. But when Marla wrote it, it was like the petals of a flower, blah, 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 blah. So I really would do just a lot of editing to her lyrics. And that's why she's got so much writing credit on the record.
And she should. And it was
And she
great.
should, yeah. No, she saved our ass sometimes.
This is not about me, but I just want to go with this song Violet, because when I had to sing. I had to keep singing. I had to be in a band. I had to do something when it came to singing. I'm a vocal teacher too. Like Like
The song Violet was your life story.
So, the song Violet was my freaking life. 2 times over, 3 times over, in a way. And I actually, which is weird, when I met you, I had purple hair. And
Yeah, before we even knew. Yeah.
Before woke people started going crazy colors, I had purple hair.
Yeah.
And so
you left that guy and you started a band.
And I started a band.
And the name of that band
is Violet.
Named after the Johnny Q. Public song.
Interesting.
Because of that. And for many, many of our shows that we started, we played that song before we even took the stage. Because, yes.
I was just going to ask how you already said that, you didn't grow up in this world. So how did you encounter the song?
The song Violet from Johnny Q. Okay. So that comes from meeting Dan and Marla. Mm-hmm. And they kind of helped me through the breakup with the last guy.
Okay.
And
we told her that we were on MTV.
Good crack.
I was like, oh my God, you're so
That's
cool. Good. And so in my horrible decisions and shitty relationships before, now I've always pursued with singing, and singing has kept me alive in my shitty relationships. 15 years with that guy, 7 years with this guy, whatever. All this is when I was on stage, I was me. And so the song Violet, if you guys go revisit that and you listen to the lyrics of the song Violet, that's my absolute story. Little flower, lift your face, because that's what I always did.
Yeah. And I'm glad we're talking about this because, see, in our podcast, we're looking at this, we're looking at this back in time, right?
Yep.
Where Bald Woman was a silly song that too many people sang like it was silly but fine,
Right.
And that's where art is hard, right? You never know how people are going to interpret your art, right?
True.
But that, yeah. So. Violet, I guess, didn't make an impact on us when we were kids, probably, which is why it
certainly.
Yeah.
Yep, I can see that.
Yeah, so I was joking earlier when I said that you guys just shit on records. I was just kidding, just trying to get a laugh. But you did say that you've gotten email about I can't listen to you because you're so negative. So, I mean, and you generally.
And I listened to 7 episodes today.
Wow.
Like not all of them, obviously.
Yeah, we're able to work while we're in the shop, so we can listen to podcasts
I'm sanding
9
the
hours.
shit out of fucking wood, and all I got is my headphones on, whatever. And I'm like, oh my God.
Did you hear the episode?
Do they like anything?
Did you hear the episode where Clifton shit on female singers?
Yes.
Oh boy. He's like, I'm just not into women singing.
Then I wasn't.
Then I was.
Okay.
3 months ago?
No, when I was 17.
Just saying.
Just playing, but I actually am seriously interested in that format. I mean, because you guys are, you're pretty negative.
See, I don't feel that. I feel like we celebrate all of this.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't
things
totally
apart.
feel
Go,
either.
Jay. Go, Jay. Go.
No, that's funny. I don't feel it either. I feel like we try to always find the positives too. Now, some of it though is like we did the first Audio Adrenaline album, the first one, the self,
and you guys were nicer on them than you were Extraordinary.
Right.
Were we really?
Oh my gosh. You were like, oh, I've got fond memories of Big House being like the youth group anthem. And then you're like, shit on Johnny Q. Public. Just, oh my gosh. I was like, we were so much better than Audio Adrenaline's first record.
You're
absolutely,
right.
Absolutely.
Totally. And that was not intentional that's funny. Okay.
But here's the weird thing, because I went back today and also re-listened to our episode on Johnny Q. Public.
Yeah, nice.
And I thought to myself, I'm so glad that we were nicer than I thought we were.
Which I will say, you didn't shit on the whole thing. I will say you didn't shit on the whole thing. And ultimately, what award did you give? What award did you give?
What was it?
Oh, it's
This was Jay's album, so I think Jay gave the award.
I'm not gonna know, but I think you helped me come up with it. The knot is
not as spiky as it.
Not as pointy.
Not as pointy.
Not as pointy. There was even you made a fucking graphic.
Did yes, did.
Not as pointy.
Not as
Which,
pointy.
you know what's interesting is I will dig that. I will dig that all day long because I will agree. Knowing Dan, and I had nothing to do with any of this back then.
Mm-hmm.
I've only discovered it in the last 6-7 years.
Mm-hmm.
11 years. Fuck, how long have we known you?
Somewhere 10, 11
Jesus
years.
Christ. But not as pointy is actually pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to be pointy, but they had this bar that was maybe set, and maybe this thing that they had to do. They were fucking dealing with Toby. And
Well, you made a
Yeah.
we actually didn't deal with Toby. He was Goatee let us do whatever we
I
wanted.
got you, but
But I know what you're saying, because I think Jay made a point. I think in the episode about, like, you know, this is a record that's like a church singing to the choir, or
preaching to the choir.
preaching
Yes,
to the choir,
yes,
like.
yes.
And it was that was an interesting point that he made, because when we were doing it, we totally did think that we were going to be more evangelical, and we're the type of band that could play in nightclubs for the lost. We're going to play
And
for the lost.
We'll get them.
Yeah, and Jay was like, "No, this is like a Christian record for Christian kids." I mean, just and the way that he,
young kids.
yeah, the way that he actually
Well, I think
kinda
I said
went.
that part. The young kids
did
was
you?
me.
That might have been you. Yeah.
You guys talked about it together,
Yeah,
whatever it
yeah.
was, and it was like that was it was a little sobering to hear, because I'm like, well, yeah, I guess you're right. Like, I tried to be poetic. I tried not to have JPMs.
Right.
You know, that annoyed me. I wanted it to be more sort of edgy. I wanted to shit on the church a little bit.
You wanted to be pointy.
I wanted to be pointy. Yeah.
and you
so,
were. You were in many ways.
And in my head at that time, I was razor sharp pointy. But as you do listen to every song being very kind of church, this is something that only church people would even know what the hell I'm talking about. Like the song "Scream." You know, I of
another
course
one.
thought "Scream" was pointy as hell, but it's
And
totally
they called it boring.
it's totally a praise song. I mean, it's a praise and worship song. It's just different. It's
Right.
different. So the not as pointy award, it was perfect. I think it was perfect.
Sure.
I mean, it was a tough pill. It was a tough pill to swallow.
But when you analyze yourself,
I had to stop the table saw and
Right.
think about it.
right.
I will say that I will say that a lot of this is inextricably mixed up into our interpretation as 14, 15, 16-year-old kids also, right? Which is part of
Right.
what we're doing with the podcast, right? We're I think we say in the intro, you know, that we're reliving and recontextualizing, you know, the stuff that we
Right.
grew up with, right? And so, you know, when we go back and listen to this, I think the not as pointy thing was really more aimed at, like, when we were 15 years old and we listened to this, or
Yep.
maybe 14,
for us.
it
Yeah.
seemed like the edgiest thing we'd ever heard, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then reliving it,
correct.
you're
You're
like,
like, huh.
I
Right.
think that's all I'm like kind of asking, sort of, and challenging, is like, so then what actually is the overall sort of goal of your show? Because like I said earlier, when I go back and listen to Audio Adrenaline's Big House, like I am bouncing off the walls. I fucking love it. I love it. Love it. I mean, you spin me an old school Petra. So I'm going to see Petra Saturday in 2 days.
2 days.
And I am going to have the best night of
He's
2021.
gonna geek out. So
I'm going to
bad.
fucking love watching these 70-year-old dudes up there singing fucking Beat the System. It's going to be great. Like, and I totally get that the mind fuck of the church, the shitty production of Christian music in general. That's kind of always been a thing.
Right.
And the sort of almost twisted, weird, the way we were all being manipulated. You know, I wasn't that much older than you guys when you were fans of Johnny Q. Public, and I was in Johnny Q. Public.
Right.
I was still going through that mind fuck manipulation of like, you better say it this way.
Yeah.
You better keep it this slant.
Mm-hmm.
You better not challenge or question too much.
Yeah.
So we were always walking this thin line of like, and so, yes, that did exist. And I understand it when I, you know, am sitting with this girl drinking wine out of a coffee cup. I'm like, I understand why you're doing this. I still think it's bullshit, but I understand it. It's all good. We're good.
Yep.
And so instead of going back and just being, where is the road? Like, is it to expose how weird and funky it all was? Or is it just that you're both two negative, bitter dudes that want to just shit on everyone? Or is it, no, I mean, I'm just throwing scenarios out or is it actually got like comedy and sarcasm and it's just totally entertainment? You know what I mean? Like, honest question.
I think it's like maybe a little bit of all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, we called it Your Music Saved Us because, you know, there's a surface level, like, you know, evangelical being saved, all that. And then there's another level of, we're really grateful to a lot of these bands for just exposing us to a different style of music that we'd never heard growing up in the youth group in church. And then I think there's even a deeper level maybe of just some of the ideas that we got from a lot of these artists that were kind of pushing the boundaries and we're doing stuff that was different and we're kind of poking, you know, under the big top, poking fun at this stuff, opened our minds to some things, and thank God helped us like kind of journey out of some of that.
Exactly.
And so I think looking at it now, we're looking back on the music, which we appreciate fondly a lot of times still. Like Body Bee is a great example. Like, it's a great song. We still like listening to it, but we're also kind of coming at it like critiquing the lyrics and kind of maybe critiquing more like the evangelical Christianity behind it, like trying to say like, what is this show about the culture at the time? And what can we learn from that?
Part of our goal is to use the music to also talk about the culture.
Yeah.
So when we get into negative things, we're almost always digging into the culture.
Yeah.
Right. Like Clifton kind of went on a rant. It really wasn't about Johnny Q. Public. It was more about like the culture. Yeah.
My rant was not about that song. My rant was about the culture that made that song be interpreted the way it was.
Right.
Yeah.
He just got a little too energetic with his fuck you, Johnny.
Maybe so.
Great. It was great.
I was laughing. I was belly laughing when it happened.
He's on the table saw. I'm sanding something, and he's what?
And this is why I ask, because like even in my podcast now, and even in my life, I'm larded. I just learned this today.
We learned that today. Yes.
I am larded with sarcasm and like wanting to push buttons and wanting to say, you know, I'll say shit like fuck Eddie Van Halen. I hate that guy. I'll say things like that on my podcast just because I know people are going to be like, what the
fuck, man?
I love Van Halen. But I was like, fuck Eddie Van Halen. You know, Led Zeppelin sucks too. Who cares? I kind of like doing those kinds of things just for the sole purpose of generating conversation because I, you know, I've had so many Led Zeppelin fans, you know, go straight on the defense.
Oh yeah.
And when they go on the defense, then I'll push them even harder, and I'll keep pushing them to like keep telling me why you like these guys so much. And then by the end of the conversation, I'm like, oh, okay, you made some good points. Yeah. Which I wouldn't have gotten had I not pushed that button.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Which is exactly why I wanted to contact you guys and talk to you, because I'm like, I'm not criticizing your show. I'm not criticizing your episode about me. I actually really, really enjoyed it. I appreciated all the research, all these things we've already told you, but it totally made me be like, well, come on, let's talk to him, you know? And that's actually a good thing. I mean, sometimes being negative, quote unquote, or shitting on something or whatever you want to call it, sometimes that can be the very thing that'll make people go, hey, yeah.
Right.
That
Yeah,
Audio
and-
Adrenaline record did suck.
Right.
In fact,
Like, and we should talk about it. I mean, I just think it's kind of humorous that you're reviewing records that are 25 years old.
That sounds
Like-
dated. It sounds dated. Yeah, it's
I think one
fucking
of you said.
25 years ago.
I think one of you said Dan's vocals on Preacher's Kid sounds
Sound
kind of
dated.
dated. I'm like, well, no shit, Sherlock. It's 25 years. That's like calling the Beatles dated.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, 'cause it was
It kind
whatever.
of sounds like I wanna hug you. Of course, it's dated. I thought that was funny.
the few notes that I took before getting on here, my first note is, are we going to fight?
No fighting, man.
Not at all.
No fighting. I
Not
love
at
it.
all.
Yeah, and you know,
I loved it. I actually am trying to say that
Yeah.
I kind of appreciate the poke and the bear a little bit.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to kind of generate real conversation. If you guys had a podcast where you're just reviewing, DC Talk's new thing,
right.
and you're telling me everything about it was fucking amazing, I would be like, no.
Right.
Bye.
I'm
Right.
not gonna
5
listen to
minutes,
that.
done.
Right,
Right.
yeah. And the fun thing for me is that even as negative as we are sometimes, and I agree that we are negative sometimes, I came out of, for example, this album, I came out of it appreciating it more than I did when I was 15,
Uh-huh.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
There's parts of this that that I couldn't have appreciated when I was 15.
Right,
Sure.
right,
You
right.
know,
Sure.
and I think the other side of that is that I want to say real fast is that I don't know about Jay, but for me, we take 2 weeks to prepare for these. So we do an episode every 2 weeks. So
Nice.
we literally record. I'm typically like a few days behind because I do the editing, but we have 2 weeks to listen to these, do the research, all this kind of stuff, right? Which seems like a lot of time, but then like a month after we record, I'm like, that one lyric was really more subversive than we thought it was.
Right.
Oh yeah, we
Right.
we have regrets every time
Yes.
we wish
Yep.
we could have. Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
yeah.
I get
That's
it.
funny.
Yeah.
I get it.
You
And in
guys
some
would have.
way,
Go ahead.
like I feel it's like any podcast. I feel like we're hopefully getting better as we go.
Yeah.
I'm sure
Yeah.
you guys
Sure.
know what that's
Sure.
like. And
Yep.
the weird thing, at least for me, and I think Clifton probably agrees, that we weren't necessarily anticipating is we're finding a lot of like kind of themes throughout these, like
Mhm.
common themes, more reflective of like the culture at the time, not necessarily like musically, but just
Right.
like the stuff they're talking about. In some ways, I think that's made us more negative because we're like, oh shit, this is coming
Yeah.
up again. Like whatever,
We
like
were being
patriarchy
duped.
or whatever it is,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
comes
but
up again in the
especially-
song, and you're like,
But especially the treatment of
Yeah.
women has come up so many times that whenever that
Yeah,
comes
like-
up, it's a little bit triggering for us now. I think where we're just like, again, really, guys?
yeah, like
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we were like, teenage guys completely oblivious to
Mhm.
it, or probably part of it at the time. But now looking back
Right.
on it, yeah, we see
Right.
it in this stuff, and we're like, ooh, yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah.
Yeah.
we're probably more negative than we would initially be. It's just because it's like, oh, this is the 10th album we've heard.
And I
this
think
on, or
I think it's
whatever.
okay because
I
the
will say, let me add that little bit because there you need to be negative because there was some shit even as short ago as 25 years. There was some shit that needs to be corrected. Absolutely. So the negativity that might come, especially in the fucking Bible range, there's a lot of shit in the Bible from over 2,000 years ago that's absolutely shitty for women.
it's not woke.
It's not woke.
That's for sure.
It's not woke at all.
And,
So,
and I think too that as being a quasi participant in it, I think that, and I would almost speak on behalf of probably most of the bands releasing music then, is we didn't know.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is to your point,
Right.
is that some things were actually just so like normal.
Given.
Right.
It's just given.
That like we didn't think we would be ruffling any feathers
No.
to sing bald women.
No.
Like,
Right.
everyone's gonna think it's funny.
Right.
And
Right.
so yeah, now to look at it from 2021, it's kind of like, oh yeah, dude, no, you can't do that.
But I will
Dude,
also
that song
say,
started getting played on the radio. I'm
Yeah.
not kidding
Exactly.
you. It started getting
Unreleased.
played more than
Unreleased.
Body Bee.
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
even on our local radio station, they started putting it in rotation, and we were like the Sod Brothers. We were like, no, we didn't even record that song for Extraordinary.
Right.
We recorded it to be a joke. And then when Joe heard it, he was like, I think we should put
Let's
it on the
do it.
record. And we
Let's
were
do
like,
it.
I don't know about that. But it was just made to be fun and funny and all that kind of stuff. Then radio stations started playing it.
Right.
It's like, what's that band that is like super hardcore, but their one song got big, and it was like oh gosh, I'm not gonna think of it.
Are we not talking about Metallica?
No, yeah, and we're not talking about Christian. It was like one of those kind of ska typey bands that kind of had like I don't know. Their one big song was like just pop as shit. And then the whole rest of their record and every record they've ever done is just like this big heavy shit.
Yeah.
So then like you go buy the record and you're
Right. And you, yeah.
Meh.
that
Yeah.
was happening with freaking Women of Zion.
Yeah.
It's like
Oh, wow.
we were trying. I was actually calling our radio station like, stop playing that song,
Stop
please.
playing that song.
Like
That's
that
not
is
us.
not meant
That's
to be
not
a
us.
single. It was meant to just be like a jokey little funny thing. Please, we almost got popular more because of that song,
Right.
and then our whole record would have gone down the toilet. All the hard work we put into actually trying to be, helpful or inspirational or something for kids to hold on to. This is my band, kind of like I used to be with Petra.
Right.
It would have all gone down the damn toilet if that song would have blown. And that was just a live and learn
Right. Yeah.
for us, because I would have never thought somebody would start playing that.
Yeah. And that's where you had walked away for a second when I said that's kind of one of the ways that where art is hard. You never know how people are going to interpret it, So
Yeah.
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 And so it was weird.
And it's very interesting with the Christian market. It's so touchy, and that song itself, and I can hear it with my ears now and just go, yeah, that's totally fucking silly.
Not necessary. And
Yeah.
we weren't even doing it to be on the record.
Right.
That song was always meant to be private between me and Oren and
Yeah,
Sean.
yeah.
We were just doing it to be funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And then somehow
Joe
it
was
got
like,
out
okay.
there, and it's like, oh,
Before
boy.
we go, I know we've been here for a long time, but I want to touch on quite possibly, for me,
It's been called the greatest Christian rock song ever written.
it has been called that.
Not by me,
By who?
just by people.
Okay. You guys kind of, sort of, just kind of skipped over As I Pray.
Okay. I don't
And
remember that one.
for me,
Which track
what
is
I
it?
I remember it.
Which track? I don't know. I think it's
Four.
right after
Okay.
No.
It's right after Black Eyes, right before No.
Oh, it's after Black Eyes? Okay.
Nice. And that song for me, because it has such deep meaning lyrically, again, Marla was a big point of this, but also Brad, going back to before Dan and Marla were together, Brad was a musician who wrote these lyrics-ish, and Brad and Marla were a thing, and he died in a car wreck when he was 20 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yes, they were due to be married when they were very young.
That was Oren's brother.
You
It was
were
Oren's older
Oren's
brother.
oldest brother. And Dan and Marla didn't even really know each other, but Dan was in a band with Brad. And so just to give a little lovely nugget of history is that you're better because I wasn't there. You're better.
Well,
But
Brad wrote some
I
lyrics that
just
ended
wanted
up
to bring it
becoming
up.
the chorus of this song.
Right.
And so, that was really cool.
And he
It's
was a beautiful human. He was a
I
wonderful.
thought you guys would appreciate this.
Oh,
This is the handwritten lyrics from Brad Thornton, which is Orrin's brother. I don't know if my camera's going to come up or not.
Yeah.
But that was a page out of his notebooks, and it's got right here in the middle, it's that part about, if I can read it, keep me in your presence. Don't let me fall away, for my lack of understanding is impatient and demanding and driving my soul astray. That was the
nuts and bolts.
in your presence.
Nuts and bolts.
So yeah, he was a big part of kind of like because it was Orrin's brother, our guitar player's
And you
older
were in a
brother.
band with him.
I was in a band with him way before Johnny Q Public.
And way before you and
And,
Marla were a thing.
And we tried to write this song like 4 different times. I have like a couple versions of it that was before what it became. So that song became a real special thing. I had a guy come up to me after a show one time who was in the military, and he actually was in combat.
This is after you were. Let's bring it up. After you were, or it was already on Extraordinary.
Yeah.
And you were doing a show where? Do you know where?
Hell, I don't know.
Somewhere in the U.S.
She does this shit to me. I'm like, I don't know where I was.
I know my shows. but-
Kentucky, Ohio, Missouri. I don't know where I was. Not the point. This guy comes up to me, and he was actually in the military. He actually was in combat, and he told me while I was in combat, I used to sing "As I Pray" in my head. Literally, bullets fucking flying by this dude. He's like, I just sang that song,
The first Gulf War.
figuring that I, was gonna die that day. So I was just sort of like, what? Shit,
Don't tell me this shit.
Right.
it's crazy. Yeah.
Right?
So that was there was stuff like that really neat stories. I will say that throughout all this muckery that we're talking about here, there were some things that I think were kind of jewels, little handful of jewels I still have from my time in Johnny Q. I think a lot of it was BS. I think the industry was a lot of BS, I think a lot of the culture that you're talking about that we're shooting holes in, I agree. But there's a handful of jewels I got that I'm glad I have.
Yeah.
And it's stories like that. And I have many more.
Somebody gave you their sobriety chip.
Yeah, I got a guy that was like 6 months sober, and he earned this coin. It was kind of like a medal, and he gave me his medal. He said I wouldn't have been able to stay sober without your music.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right. I took
Okay.
that, and so I got a lot of fun stuff like that, and we had a lot of good times. And some of the stuff I'm not super proud of. But I also didn't know any better. And I'm not using that as an excuse, and I'm also not talking about Women of Zion. I'm talking about just the life and the doing it and the touring and some of the stuff I said from stage. I'm just like, oh, God, I can't believe I said some of those things. I do have all those things.
Yeah.
Some of them I kind of legitimately regret. But I also give myself a little bit of a pass just because I didn't know what the hell I was doing either. I don't think any of us did. I don't think any of us really did.
And that's something we talk about every once in a while. Is just that everyone else is kids, right? This is kids trying to teach kids how to be humans. That's kind of wrapped up in this industry of Jesus is per minute,
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
And
100%.
That's the hard part. And then the other side of it, the other side of your music saved us is what you just said. That like music has been so important to me, to getting me through hard times and through just just being the crutch I can fall on and all kinds of stuff. And for us, and for me at least, I can say that it's this music that we're doing on this podcast. That's where it started.
Yeah. And you're just reevaluating it as an adult, as a 40-year-old,
Exactly.
as whatever.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just find it crazy how many people I've met, including you guys now too, where we find ourselves at 40 and 50 years old going like,
Yeah.
Whatever it is. I'm agnostic. I'm atheist. I'm not into it anymore. I can't go to church. I can't go. There's a lot. There's a lot of that. And I think that just because of that, it's been interesting for so many of us now to take a platform and to be like, hey, I got a little something to say about this, by the way, just so it doesn't get swept under the rug. Fuck this. And, and what, what in the world was it? I don't think we could point a finger at anybody to blame. We sort of all did it together, but at the same time, it's like, it doesn't appear to have helped any of us. I mean, I really don't think that the 90s Christian kids are like still doing it.
Right.
I mean, on a percentage basis, I'm shocked sometimes when I talk to somebody that was a Christian friend of mine in 95. I'm shocked when I find out they're still into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say me too. I'm surprised how many are still kind of
just
doing that stuff. Yeah, even musicians and stuff that are still, and maybe it's the money. Some of them are gotten so big that's what they have to do, whether they believe it or not. But some I think genuinely do, and I'm with you. It surprises me too. But and even the Christian part of it doesn't like bug me. It's just the fact that you're not even questioning. You're not even asking questions. You're not seeking more truth or different truth or other perspectives.
Right.
You're still right on that, like, how you doing, brother? I'll have some old Johnny Q fan guy. This is very rare, but
really?
Hey, man, you still, you still believe? And I'm like, don't make me answer that question. I just like, you're so excited that my faith is still intact, and I just hate to bum you out, but it's kind of not.
Yeah.
I mean, not in that way. So it's that kind of stuff is just kind of funky. I don't know.
You said a second ago that it didn't work, and I'm gonna reinterpret here a little bit and say that I think it did work. I think, like I said, this music has a place in our heart because it did work to some, like, it may not have accomplished the goals that it was that the people writing it may thought that they were doing, or that the record executives thought that they were doing, or who knows what anybody thought what they were doing, right? But it's still great music that is something, like you said, you can put on Petra and still scream along to it and love it, and just lose yourself in it. And that's what I think, that's 90% of it there,
I think that's a wonderful interpretation of what I just said, because I'm always too harsh when I say things. You're totally right. It completely worked. I mean, I would not be the same person I am today without having had that 10, 15 years from me of listening to Christian music and loving God in those venues. At least I wasn't out doing drugs and impregnating girls and, doing these kinds of things. I kind of kept my shit together because of the Christian music industry.
Yeah.
I think I could just very honestly say that.
Yeah, that's fair.
I just think some of the overarching principles maybe didn't stick.
Yeah.
But maybe it's because they were bullshit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe.
It's kind of funky.
Did you make it? It's over. Congratulations. You listened to the entire interview. Behind the next door is a monster. Wait, is that how it goes? I forget. Okay. So thanks for spending this time with us. If you have any questions or comments or want to tell us that interview was great or horrible, you can email us at yourmusicsavedus@gmail.com. You can go on our website, yourmusicsavedus.com. We're on internet. We're on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. Anything else, Jay?
We need to plug Dan's podcast.
So Dan and Tara's podcast is Unsung Dreamers, where they basically have conversations, kind of like we did just for that right there, with people who have been part of the industry over the years and have either had their dreams come true or not have their dreams come true. And it's pretty interesting. Go over and give it a listen.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.